Hydrofield cuts through my neighborhood.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fearlessly Authentic. I got Steve over here.
Hey, what up, people?
And Zainab Day is with us today, so I'm going to bring her right in. There you are.
Nice.
How are you tonight?
Doing good. How are you guys? I love your intro. It's the cutest.
Steve made that.
Good job, Steve.
He does good with that stuff. I'm like, if I have to do anything, like if I forget my password on the computer, I am so frustrated. I am just like, oh my god, like the world is ending, right? Steve does all the computer stuff. I'm like, I can make stuff, I can make it all day, but I am not good at like doing the selling part and all that stuff. Like, it's just not.
That's right.
It's not my thing.
I spilled coffee on my computer earlier this month.
Don't.
I know, but I had insurance on it, and when I bought the insurance, I was like, no, I don't really want to buy this. But then they just replaced it, so
Awesome.
I got really lucky. Yeah, right.
Wow, that's amazing.
Fearless for a few weeks, and I was like, well, it's kind of nice. I've been staying off the noise for a while.
Right.
Yeah, I've been kind of like taking a step back from it and taking a step back from like as many like podcasts as I was watching before and stuff, and it's better for my mental health.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even with us we get tied up in things too. Oh, but before we start, why don't you give everybody a little bit of like your background and what you know what I mean, a little bit about yourself, and then we can jump right in that way.
Well, I'm Zainab Day, as you guys could see. I'm awesome. No,
you are. Yes.
No, I'm awesome. I'm a mom. I'm a journalist, public relations person. I have been in politics for a decade doing that work. I've worked everywhere from Justice Democrats. I know, don't judge me too much. It's a whole story. Brand new Congress. I supported, more than 100 campaigns across the country. I worked elections. I'm autistic, so I'm on the spectrum. So I'm always like diving in and getting obsessed with a topic and then reading about it as much as I possibly can. So that's what I do in my spare time. Sometimes I have to take a break, which will have a little bit to do with what we're talking about tonight. But I stay on top of things. I'm an activist and organizer. I have been for a long time. And right now I'm just trying to figure out my place in the world again. At 44, it's like things are kind of changing, but it's really exciting sometimes when, stuff happens. But I ain't rich. I'm from poverty, from Appalachia. My dad's Afro-Iranian. My mom's as Scots-Irish as it gets. She's total mountain folk. And so it's been a fun ride, and I'm here to hang out with you amazing people tonight. So.
Oh my gosh, it's so awesome.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's like long overdue. Like, seriously, I don't know why we hadn't like done this sooner. I was just like, wait a minute, we need to do this. Like,
I'm so excited to talk to you guys. I love your all show. I was one of your first new members after you got monetized. So, nice. And I was really excited to see that because I've been watching you guys for a while, and it's sort of like my unplug and watch something that's, for lack of a better term, fearlessly authentic, and your namesake is true, and it's good medicine, and folks in the chat are fun, and it's one of my favorite shows to watch because it's not all like uppity and it's not all laced with politics, but you do bring facts and information. And so it's like a good blend between, it feels like I'm sitting down and having a conversation.
Yeah, that's what we had hoped. That's the kind of thing we were trying to do with this, is just like be able to talk to each other and try to, make other people aware of things as we find out about them, or things that we're specialized in, or whatever, you know what I mean? And just keep talking to as many people as we can, and spread the mutual aid vibe around, and try to help each other and lift each other up as much as we can all the time. And
it's a community too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
A community thing. Like we're not trying to like be the focal point. We're trying to like, oh, do you know about this guy, and do you know about that guy, and you should subscribe to this one, and you know what I mean? Like constantly try to do that, and just
awesome.
bolster the ranks by lifting each other. All boats get lifted, you know, the kind of situation.
And it just shows that you can have connections with people online.
Mm-hmm.
You can have real, genuine connections with people. And we show that, you know what I mean? And like everybody, even like in the chat and stuff, like I've had a bunch of people just like from our community on. There's people that have started doing their own like shows and stuff because they, you know, like we helped them, or they came on, then they were like, wow, I want to do this too. Like it's just really, really amazing, you know, and some people ebb and flow through, you know, and it's just like it's its own living like organism, the community. That's what it feels like. Like we just kind of host it, you know, like I want anybody, you know, like I've had people reach out and just be like, yeah, I want to come on and do it. Okay, let's do it. Let's do a show. Let's talk about it. And
there's just brilliant people all around us. So.
Yeah, you might not see the most famous people, but like, you know, I treat everybody like they are like a famous person, you know, because I feel like, you know, like everybody should be able to shine in whatever way it is, and show off whatever talent it is, and whatever knowledge they have and experience. Like, because I feel like there's far less of us that are actually critical thinkers, that are like looking for not just whatever the you know, like the mainstream propaganda, or even what the kind of like, I feel like there's like this whole like, you're either left or right, or you're kind of like in the center or whatever, but whatever lane it is that you're in, there's like a certain propaganda that you're supposed to just follow, and it's like you're at the bowling alley and the bumpers are up. You know what I mean? Like you can't go off to the side. Like, no, it's just, there's bumpers there, you know, and
stay in your lane. Everybody likes to say that. Stay in your lane.
I feel like that's kind of
outside your lane, you
know, like there's you know? Propaganda among like all of it. And sometimes we can get like kind of like just stuck in it, like if it's mud, you know, like we get stuck in that propaganda and in our lane, and it's sometimes hard to recognize that.
Yeah, it can't. I was like, our generation, you know, I'm from like the beginning of millennials, tail end of Gen X. So they call us the lost generation. Cause
I'm a Gen X too.
Yeah, because
I'm the last of the Gen X, and Steve is at the beginning of Gen X. So like we're within the same Gen X, but like he's on one end of it and I'm completely on the other.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Funny. They say that like I think it's like from 73, 74 to like 86, they call it the lost generation, because like Atari came out when we were babies, you know, and then we got Nintendo. I like to describe it through video games, but then we got, you know, Sega Genesis, and then PlayStation, and then, you know, then cell phones came out. We had those big Nokia brick phones. So like we went from dial-up to digital. So like our generation literally went from like analog to digital as we grew up. So
I have pictures that I have printed on like 110 camera film, because that was my first camera. When I was 10, I had a little 110 Kodak, and I have pictures like, you know, of like really cool ones that I took when I was little.
That's cool.
Yeah, because
you know, it's so different now, and it's really gotten strange. Like I remember MySpace, you know, and it was like no one wanted labels, no labels, you know, but you would play your background music, and you would have like your you know, your wallpaper was a big.
Oh my God, I have like my old MySpace still exists. It still exists.
A lot of people.
And I was really into like I was going through a phase where I only only dated women. So like everything was like pride, like the whole thing. Like I would be so embarrassed for you guys to see how freaking cheesy I was. But yeah, like that really, you know what I mean? Like I was in that, like that lane of the LGBT. Like that's when the T was like kind of new to the LGBT, you know, like it wasn't, they weren't really like part of it yet officially. I mean, there was like talk about it.
deep up in the lesbian coalition.
Yeah, like like it was, people were, you know, it was very like just much. I thought maybe I was just gonna be with women for the rest of my life. Like I went through many years. So like I was in that, like, and I see why people even now would be like feeling the way they do in that cult, you know, in that like kind of like that propaganda machine around that too.
Yeah, it can aid self-exploration, but sometimes putting a million labels on ourselves actually can thwart and choke out, you know, that. I mean, we had some of that growing up, you know, there was you know, emo and grunge and goth and, you know, but everyone was a little bit of a mix. I went to prom with a girl. My senior prom, a girl was my date, and then my junior prom, my date was a flamboyant, just outright gay guy.
That's awesome. You had like the pretty in pink prom, like what?
And it was like all community, like all the gay kids were at my house after prom, and it was so much fun. I kissed a girl in front of my neighbor. Like I kissed my date in front of my neighbor because they were anti-LGBT. They were like rabid Christians, so that was really funny. But I remember
that's so great
rebellion, but I also remember it being, you know, authentic to who I was and who I am. So, but I also kind of remember us kind of blustering at having the labels, and I can remember just sitting down and having conversations with people, and I didn't know where they fell politically. You know, we would talk about things based on one issue to the next issue to the next issue. We wouldn't start out the conversation saying, "Are you a Marxist? Are you a right winger?" And
yeah, no, that was not a thing. Like,
are you a socialist leftist?
I know, it was never like, where are you leaning politically? Like, that was never part of the. It was just we talked about social issues, and that was it.
It was like, bro, you got any weed? Like that was the thing. It was
pretty much the question that most people ask.
That's the standard question. You don't care about political positions, you know, or ideology. It's like, but
until
seriously,
after you smoke,
are you a little bit communist? Are you going to share that weed with me? Because you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's cool with me, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of like where it was more at. It wasn't, now it feels like there's more and more labels than ever before, and like they're ever evolving and changing, and like it's like it's sometimes it's hard to keep up on them, like just to know what means what, and like, and I feel like old when that happens. I'm like, I don't even know, but like I feel like the slang is constantly changing and evolving, and especially, you know, within certain communities, and it is heavier, you know. But like I'm like I have a hard time keeping up with everything, because it's like it's just like I feel like the pace of everything is faster too, because you know the way the information,
a delineation. So you know, in organizing and stuff, I've seen something kind of wild. I'll see someone who's like wealthy. Oh, there's Applejack.
Applejack says he's only 35% communist. He's willing to give away some of his stuff and share.
People should start putting percentages.
Yes. Oh my god, I know, right?
Oh, we need excellent.
We need a percentage calculator. Like, you know what I mean? Like we need like a chart. So like
you would get rich off that app, Lucky.
What percentage are you?
Yeah, that would be so funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah. What percentage are you of this? Like, based upon
your daily tweets could dictate, how your slant changes, you have a little meter that waves back and forth.
that would be so funny. Like you have like a gauge from 0 to 100%, like just by ask, like that would be fun to like, that would be a fun like questionnaire to come up with. You know what I mean? Like, do you believe in this? Like just like basically every point of communism, or like ranking it, you know what I mean, between like 1 and 5, and think that depending on that, like
different kinds of communists too, because you've got you've got the democratic socialist, which aren't exactly communists, then you've got the Stalinists, then you've got the Marxists, then you've got the Trots, and then you've got
you got Maoists. There's a lot of different variations, certainly.
And they argue, like I've tried to organize bring them in together, and I can't get anything done on any even for mutual aid, because all they're doing is like arguing on different types of sophistry regarding Marxism. And I'm like, really? The real world exists right now, and we're
it's easy to get sucked into that.
Or you're just gonna run each other off if you're not, qualified to be here because you've read enough Marx. I mean, come on.
It's like if you're well read enough, you can just create a rabbit hole for people. Like you can create a Discord server that people just literally get sucked into like a black hole and never heard from again. Discussing the nuances of communism and Marxism.
And
it's almost like them saying,
dudes, I'm sorry, I hate to say
it generally is though.
That's the truth. It's like 25 to 35-year-old upper class white dudes, and they sit there and they're like extremely mansplaining, and I don't even like to use that term, but it fits for this. And I'm like, I'm going, my brain is breaking. I'm like, can we please, I understand everything you're talking about, but can we please just
like something? Can we take a step back from that ideology and take a just
to be fair, these guys have been studying this stuff since college, right? And they half of them got degrees in this knowledge that no one ever will apply and is completely arcane, but they can discuss this stuff to a finite point, and articulate all of the nuance that's involved. I've had those discussions with different people that are like really well read on like bills, and like talking to Shadow Ban about certain specific things. Remember? Oh my God, that guy is just like levels of knowledge, and like, okay, all right, bro.
I mean, it can be amazing learning history and stuff from folks like that. But where I run into a hiccup is when they tell me, what wins elections? And I'm like, have you ever worked elections? They're like, no. And I'm like, I've worked 100. And then they tell me something like, this is what the voters want. And then I'm like, have you ever talked to voters? Have you ever asked them questions? Because like as a communications professional, I've had thousands and literally thousands of calls. I've answered thousands of emails, social media for the last decade. But what I did was you listen first. Hi, puppies. Look at the puppies.
That me. He's like, I need to come see my people.
Yeah.
Show him my heart. Do you see his chin?
Yes.
Yeah. He's got a little heart.
He's got a heart.
Oh, look at that.
He's a little love dog.
I'll show you Ella in a few minutes. They look very similar. But she doesn't want to hang out.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to like interrupt you.
I was just saying, they'll lecture me on like how to win elections and like, how to reach voters. And I'm like, have you ever talked to any? You ever had a conversation with people? Have you ever done the research? And no, they just kind of assume. And it's interesting because I'm also like, not to be mean, but what are you going to do with this? Like you're here talking about it right now. What are you going to do with it? And then they're always like, I'm going to write a manifesto and start a movement. I'm like, oh, you are? Okay. Good luck.
It's like you have to kind of like filter it and see how much time to invest into something. You know what I mean? Like how much time are you going to invest into it to help them? Because what are they, you know what I mean? Like it's great that people want information, but sometimes we have to think about how we spend our, you know what I mean, our time, and whether or not we go down those rabbit holes, like, because our time is valuable. You know, our time is absolutely valuable, and we need to remember that.
Good point.
And like it, and they have their own lane of you know, like propaganda too. You know what I mean? And they're kind of like, and that's the thing. Like everybody kind of has like this whole like narrative that most of the people like do some sort of group think, and it's weird because it's like then if you don't group think with them, then there's like an issue. When you don't group think and you don't agree 100% on things, then people just really have this like guttural reaction, and they just want to like, oh no, like you know, like they just want to walk away or cut ties or and like when and that's probably like a natural reaction, but it's not going to get us anywhere.
No.
If we want to filter out everybody that doesn't agree with us, like we're gonna make a very, very small amount of people. But I mean,
those two extremes, like I had heard, so during that Rage Against the War Machine rally and all of that stuff that was going on, it's like the whole rhetoric was around, we need to talk to Nazis. And I'm like, why are you going like way over to the fringe to say that that's who we need to talk to? They're like,
I know,
Nazis, we'll never get anywhere. And then you even have like, because he's out of touch, you even have Chris, you know, Hedges writing a whole article about like talking to the most extreme. And I'm like, dude, that's like 3% of the country. And then you've got like 3% of the country that's like the far extreme left. Thank you, Applejack. But these people are like, let's talk to Nazis. And I'm like, you do realize that no one likes them either. That's not what we mean when we say like accepting people with different views. We're not talking about people that cover up really hateful things.
Yeah, that doesn't mean go to the extreme, okay? It means that there's going to be people, like, we have to figure out where that middle ground is, where we kind of like, you know, where is that hard line, you know?
Exactly. Come on. My dog wanted in. I apologize.
It's okay.
Oh, speaking of which, I'll show her to you.
Oh my gosh, I love your pants.
My awesome pants, too.
I love them. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Oh, Leo, look at it's your friend. You just haven't sniffed yet.
Yep.
Oh,
it looks like the Leo that got like put in the make them bigger machine.
Yeah,
just a little bit bigger, just like I like a size larger in Leo.
How much does your guy weigh?
I think she weighs 16 pounds.
Oh my gosh, so she's like probably like 10 pounds heavier than Leo. Like that's so perfect.
So
oh my gosh.
Chunkier version of Leo.
Apple-headed Chihuahua, but she's like twice the size of one. So I don't know what she is.
She's adorable.
He's miniature pincher and Chihuahuas, but he's like muscular as hell.
Ears.
The ears on that dog are oh my gosh. What is her name?
Brindled? I've not really seen anything that looks quite like her.
She's
weird.
She's so cute. I love it. She's so cute. I love the big ears. Like that just like that just gets me. And then the little tail. Oh my gosh. I know Leo has a little curly, like it curls over his back and like taps.
Oh, I love Leo's tail, especially in like costumes.
Yeah. He's too much.
He is too much. Absolutely. He's a ham. He is a ham. Oh my gosh.
That's a lot of cuteness for one stream, you guys.
I know. I know.
Are you talking about me and Lucky? Thank you.
Well, I mean, that and cute dogs, come on. we're sure to get in trouble.
Let's see. What did there's a sector of left alt media that's super open to unity with MAGA Trump supporters, but they have fictitious victorial over people who support Biden. It's just odd to me.
It is strange because I mean I kind of understand where it comes from to a certain extent, but it's that they're putting like they still have this coastal elitist view of what MAGA Trump supporters are. They think that MAGA Trump supporters are, or they think that Trump supporters, or people that not necessarily even supporters, but just voted for Trump, are all racist bigots who are like extreme right wing. And I'm like, dude, come to Appalachia and talk to some people, because they're not actually like this at all. So they have this misconception of these red states based on, and in these red states, more than 50% of the local seats go uncontested. So the people that are representing these people didn't even get voted in. But I figured it out that a lot of these people that are saying this kind of thing, they've never even talked to anyone in MAGA country. They've never even talked to anyone in these areas where Trump vote or Trump voters. They've never even talked to conservatives. They just have this caricature of what it is. Then they try to mimic that caricature. And I look at them and I'm like, you're being pretty racist here, you know. Like,
it's the polar opposite.
Dude, come down here and say that you're gonna get lit, you know.
There was one time, this was like during, I think, the 2020 election, so it was before that, and it was like summertime, and we were down at the marina.
2019,
it was 2019 then. And I was like, we were down there, like I was I think Steve was fishing. I was pulling I was doing magnet fishing. So
regular fishing.
Not regular fishing, magnet fishing. But we were down there.
That's awesome.
It's fun. It's fun. Sometimes you find cool stuff. A lot of it's garbage, but sometimes you find cool stuff.
Technically.
Yeah. And so I was down there and I was talking to a guy. And I was talking like politics with him, and he said he was a Trump supporter, and I had this like amazing conversation with him. And I come back to Steve and Sky, my daughter, and I'm like, yeah, I was talking to that guy. He's like a total like Trump supporter and stuff like that. And their reaction was just like, oh. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, what you know what I mean?
One of those.
Oh, gosh. And I was like, it was a really great conversation. And I opened their eyes to, like, like, I asked him why he supported Trump and, like, why, you know what I mean? Why he felt the way that he did and how did he ignore the things that, you know what I mean? The things that are really gross about him, you know? And I asked him these questions, and we had an amazing conversation. And it was like, it's kind of like, a mixture. It was a mixture of like kind of propaganda, and then like, well, he was a guy, and it was that narrative of, oh, he was a businessman, and even though he was a slimy businessman, you know what I mean? Like it was the propaganda of whatever, you know what I mean? Like that people always state with Trump.
And by the same token, when she come back to the car to say she had this amazing conversation with this Trump supporter, our initial reaction is, what the hell? Because we're programmed to think that. Like, that's what we've been spoon fed for 5 years. Trump bad, Orange man bad, China, Iran.
And we're not Trump supporters, but, like, we just talk in real talk, like, I'm nonpartisan with this stuff. Like, so.
Sure, my idea, was evolved then even to include the fact that when Trump was going up against Hillary, I thought Trump was the better candidate just on the things that he was saying, because he's like literally calling a spade, like, here, this is fucked up. And it's been 8 years of fucked up shit. And you could not deny that there was 8 years of fucked up shit and lots of drones and lots of bombs being dropped.
For sure.
And all of these horrible things that the administration was doing. I'm like, yeah, I understand why people would vote in a used car salesman that's saying the right things. That's what it is. That's all it ever was.
And the same token, I think that was a really good point that was made in the chat, was that it is really odd that like the same people that are saying make friends with actual Nazis, because it's not always that they're just saying not voting blue is violence. Some people do believe that. But they will say, that there is they'll say work with Nazis, like, so they'll go to the very, very extreme ends, and then they'll be like
that right there.
There's also people who were propagandized to vote for Biden because they were told Trump was Hitler, so there should be empathy on all sides. That's right, Doom. And that's the whole thing, like
everybody has a lane.
Like you used to be the press director for AOC, and I was like, yes, cancel. I'm like, but I was also one of the first people to call her out, which was a big deal because my whole resume was built around supporting these people. So calling them out for me was a different kind of risk, because here I am, giving up my references, giving up that sort of thing to say she gave corporate money to Democrat, or she gave, her money to all these corporate Democrats. But at the same time, like, there's still people that like AOC that I talk to and I still associate with because, they're not, I can still organize with them and still talk to them. I don't have to cancel them just because they occasionally vote Democrat or they vote Democrat. I don't understand this. You have
to be there as a friend for when they come around, isolating them isn't gonna, it's not gonna change their perspective. It might compound like their perspective more,
right? Make them double down when you give them,
because like you can plant seeds, you know what I mean? You can plant seeds of truth, and whether or not they let them grow or not, it's up to them.
Right. Indirect bits of information that are not.
My dog needs out again. I apologize. I'm so
I think when you give people information and just say a thing that may conflict with what they already think, you do it as lightheartedly as you can and as indirectly. So it's not like directed at that person or challenging their belief. You know what I mean? It's just like, well, the way I understood it is this, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I understand, but that, maybe I'm wrong, at least, you put it out like that, but say the thing, you know what I mean? So that people have another thing that they can consider that doesn't like directly affront them. I think that's the most effective way that you can share information. When people don't feel like you're beating them over the head with it, then they're more apt to, look at it and examine it.
Yeah. And we're humble about it too. When we're humble about it, when we do it in a caring way, because we care about you, I want you to know the truth. If you're approaching it in that kind of fashion, I think that's helpful, and it coming from a friend, I think that you're more likely to listen to a friend than just a random person that's online, and you're just like, oh yeah, well, blah, people getting those Twitter spats.
And it's hard online because, like, since I am on the spectrum, it's more like what used to be described as I was diagnosed with Asperger's, when they still used to do that diagnosis. I will write, like, I want to make sure it's all in there, and sometimes I'll accidentally repeat myself. You've probably even seen that, Lucky. I'll be like, and I don't mean to. It's just how my brain works. Mm-hmm. And I try to catch it and not do it, but it slips through. But I try to give enough information, and I try to have more robust conversations. That's just how I'm wired. And social media is like 140 characters, or it's like taboo if you put in a long message, because then you're taking up the chat or whatever. So it's really sometimes hard to convey a nuance. It's really hard to convey nuance, and so you kind of get lost in it. And I never was a Republican. I considered myself a libertarian for 10 years and then independent. I did help Democratic candidates. But that doesn't mean I was a Democrat. But people that are Democrats, I don't voter shame. I don't shame them for like joining or wanting to believe in that, or people that are Republicans. It's kind of like, what do you believe in as an individual? Can we have a conversation about these?
Yeah, what are your core beliefs about things, and start there.
It's a good place to gauge at least what what I mean, how to approach what you're talking about.
Because we can kind of like, then we can go from there. Like, once we know like the basics of, all right, well, we agree on those things, so like let's talk about something that maybe we don't, like, you can kind of like, like, you don't know where that line is with somebody unless you approach it, and you have to just and hopefully, you know, you're working with another person that can communicate and that can, you know, that can give you feedback and all that. But like, not everybody has those skills either, and so it can be really hard.
It's less and less, I feel like, being able to do that. It's like people kind of like virtue signaling is a real thing. And I know that the right wing is always like the left.
It's a professional.
And I'm like, sport. 90% of what you guys do is virtue signaling just for the other side. Like
in a different way. It's like, and then when you start looking at it and you like take a step back and you look at both sides and you're just like, wow, like they're really extreme on that end and they're really extreme on that end. And then there's like everybody in between. And I feel like I'm like not on that spectrum. Like I'm like, okay, I can just see this theater that's happening, and it's very predictable. Like it's like, okay, you know that, okay, if the, you know, somebody on the right or more conservative does this, then you know what the reaction's gonna be. Like it's very predictable, like back and forth.
Usually, you know, the way the play works is that the infraction or the seemed moral infraction against the other side is always blown out of proportion to 10 times bigger than it actually is. Yeah. And then the reaction to that reaction is also in turn. And then, you know, eventually it's just nonstop. Like it's like a cartoon that never ends. I made a video because my friend Popeye, who I think is still in here, said he said the other, like, I don't know, a few months ago or last year, he was like, voting in the US is like voting is the adult equivalent to writing a letter to Santa Claus in the US. And I'm like, yeah, that's fully fucking, that's spot on, you know, like
accurate.
That is accurate as hell. So like I use that constantly. I even made a video. We should play that video. I made a video that that documents that, and it's like Obama just ranting, like getting people psyched for the midterms, or when Fetterman was running. So he's like screaming this, and in the background you just hear people chanting, vote, 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 vote. It's some more theater.
It's a ritual.
Theater of the theater.
It's a ritual.
Yeah.
That we have been propagandized into believing, you know.
These are religions. They basically are. I mean, you get to a certain point. I feel like Jonathan Haidt wrote a really great article about this, sociologist Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, in The Atlantic, called "Why the Past 10 Years of American Life Have Been Uniquely Stupid." Nice. And it has a ton of research, and it's really good. And it talks about how, you know, of course we know this, we're stuck in our algorithmic bubbles on social media, so we're getting fed what we think is reality, but the information may not be. Also, he noted that it's often not the like 14-year-olds in the basement. It's actually the loudest and most vocal on both sides of the spectrum are suburban bored wine moms.
Oh my gosh, I'm not surprised. Oh my gosh, I'm not surprised. Of course.
Yep. 240
so like,
years of
these fake accounts online, and you think you're arguing with like a you know, some incel in his basement, and it's some, you know, wine mom on Long Beach.
Oh my gosh.
That's fantastic.
Like, we have people that are bored. I think they're bored.
Now we have the AI that we can just dish the work off to, so those moms can get their nails did and everything, and it'll be great. Everything will be fine.
Oh my gosh.
With this cult, it's kind of like, I feel like I've come out of a cult. I feel like I've unplugged, and I never thought that I would get here. I never even saw it happen, because I'm such a critical thinker, you know, because I analyze everything to death. But in 2022, when everything happened with the People's Party and with Nick Brana and, you know, the sexual harassment and assault and all of that came forward, Well, they went on like a media tour and they said, oh, she's, this with the Democratic Party and she's an infiltrator and she's all these things before I even came out. Then my name came out in the media and then I had to respond. And about 6 months later, I finally shared my story. But in between all of that, I kept walking into like organizing circles where I wasn't trusted anymore.
Right.
So it was like, we heard about you on the Jimmy Dore show, or we heard about you on Jackson Hinkle's show, or we heard what Matt Taibbi said about you, that this was just another Me Too. So, what are you and who are, and I was like, none of those people know who I am. None of them asked any details. None of them know what's going on. They were just protecting the dude, which is what happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, I found myself like starting to do this thing where it was still things I believed in, but I was like virtue signaling all the time, not even consciously, but just trying to prove that I am worthy, that I'm a real person, that I'm a real organizer, that this last 10, 20 years of work I've done.
You feel like you had to like over the top do everything and like really like, no, see, like I'm bringing my receipts, I'm bringing, you know what I mean? Like that's not.
And people would email me, Zaina, why aren't you talking about this? Why aren't you talking? And then I would have to, do a big Twitter post about it. And, I also found that I was doing this thing where I was going to people for information on certain things, like certain subset groups. You're supposed to listen to this group of people if it's about this, listen to the impacted communities. But I found on some of this, I was getting literal misinformation, and I didn't start figuring that out till later. And it was frustrating. And so, I started realizing that what I was going through and what I was seeing in this like echo chamber that had built up around myself in these years of organizing was that everyone was in this bubble. And I was starting to get like a ton of propaganda all the time, especially from social media. And I was giving into it. Like I was feeding into it. I was feeding into that thing where it's like, I need to respond to this today. This just happened. I need to respond. And I'm a journalist. So I used to go and research things before I posted on anything. And I found myself just, so-and-so posted about that. I should retweet that.
Without like actually, it's, you let your guard down.
Yeah.
Because you feel safe. You feel safe within your community and it's being echoed back to you and fed back to you.
I think that's how I don't mean to interrupt. I think that's exactly how this whole trans rights for children and puberty blockers and all of that thing is like gaining momentum because of that mindset. It allows for more and more people to say, yeah, that's the right thing to do. That's the right, and nobody to question.
It's all affirmed.
And they just keep affirming it and keep affirming. Well, the doctor said you have to affirm it.
It's the same. It's the same thing. If you look at, just the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, you know what I mean? It's just that same like
mechanism,
echo chamber.
Yeah, it's the same mechanism
on everything. And then you have your different 15 minutes of concerns. I wrote a 21st century Bill of Rights. And more than 72 either representatives or people running for House and Senate signed on to it. So, it was a big deal because it boiled everything down to the basics. We need housing, healthcare, migration, protections for people immigrating. We need to make sure that we have access to data and technology infrastructures, because that's how most people work now. Things like that, telecommunications. But I found that like it started going like, okay, on that note that you're talking about, especially with the Democrat and Republican parties, I was researching. I'm in a group for, parents with autistic children, because I have a daughter who is autistic. I'm autistic myself. So I was in that group and I noticed that seven mothers that I know, and I know there's an additional 4 mothers that I know that I've known for years that have daughters around my age, all of them claiming to be trans, all of them.
Yeah, the numbers are
anecdotal, but in our group where there's hundreds, like almost every mother was saying, yes, my child is doing this. If they were a girl, almost everyone. So I started getting information because I was hearing the same for mine. So I started, looking around. Where's the information? Where can I go? So I went to the trans community and I said, can you give me some information on this? Well, just because I asked the question in 2 groups, I was kicked out of the group just for asking the question of how safe is puberty blockers? Where can I go? I don't know if an affirmative care clinic is right. Are there other routes? Like how long before they start you on a track of affirmation? Before affirmation happens, how long, is the psychological evaluation? Because before I asked that question, I was being told, even in those groups, that it was evaluated for a while. They're evaluated for a while.
Yeah.
Surgeries aren't happening. These medications aren't being given. Then when I asked the question, it was like, you affirm immediately. You're not allowed to ask that question. I was like, but you guys have been saying for the last year that this isn't happening. Now you're turning around saying that it is. And I'm very confused. Like, I'm literally asking for resources here. I'm a supporter. I'm many people that I love that are trans or that I care about. Yep. And, I'm against the laws that are completely banning it because I don't think that that's right, because there may be children that need care and treatment. But at the same time, we can't have where there's like social situations and other things going on that these parents are describing to me, and they're automatically affirming, automatically socially transitioning, and automatically medicating, which is something that I keep hearing over and over again from
on first visits. I found that parents are saying that on first people even that are detransitioning too. There's more and more people coming out, and they kind of go into the woodwork of it. You know what I mean? And they found that most of the people that are self-identifying as transgender are on the autism spectrum, or they have borderline personality disorder. They have other underlying issues that aren't being addressed.
Particularly the female to male pipeline, the female to male.
When it's entire groups of a friend group. Mm-hmm. Like that's when an entire friend group is doing something, then that kind of screams like, okay, is this like a trendy thing? Like this is, because we know, like being, adults now, I know for me, like going through puberty definitely was not a comfortable time. Like your entire body feels foreign. I just, and then if you have something like autism on top of it, you can have that disassociation type thing that, you know what I mean? And I'm not medically trained, but from what I've learned, like that's like, those are factors, and they're not even spoken about, and they should be because we owe it to the children to speak about these things, right?
I have empathy. I think I understand where they're coming from, Lucky, in some ways. So I think that they're coming from this place of there has been hate and there has been rhetoric and there has been language like the Don't Say Gay bills in Florida, which is friggin' awful. Right. And then you've got really crazy laws there. Like parents can literally kidnap kids and then claim that like an abusive dad, for instance, could kidnap a kid. And I'm going to say that because that happens all the time. I worked in domestic violence advocacy for survivors for years. The dad could take the kid, drive down to Florida and claim that, drive from Oklahoma to Florida, get to Florida and claim that the mom was trying to trans the kid. And then they could arrest the dad, or they could seek asylum for the dad, not arrest him, seek asylum. And that person could live there and literally kidnap the kid. Also on the other end in Florida, another thing that's happening is where you can be reported to CPS if you're like socially transitioning your kid, but they don't describe what that is. So what if your little girl decides she wants to dress in all camo and go to school, you're going to arrest the parents? Or if the little boy
define that, because I think that what's happening is that we're becoming like stereotyping, and the stereotype of what a woman is or what a man is becoming reinforced. And I feel like we're going backwards because I was always like the tomboy or whatever, you know, like a tom girl or whatever. I was, you know, I would be out playing with the boys, doing rock fights and acorn fights and GI Joes, and you know, doing all the stuff like that, you know, getting dirty, you know, and then go inside and I had buddies, you know what I mean? Like I was very fluid with what I've worn, you know what I mean? Like I've always worn like, you know, like male clothes, and sometimes I like to wear dresses too, or skirts. Like I'm very fluid within those things, and I think that all this is doing is like reinforcing this weird like stereotypes of what a woman is, like why, you know what I mean? And then there's like, it's like men wearing kilts is fine, but they can't wear a dress. Like I don't really give a fuck if you're not hurting like children, you're not, you know what I mean? Like I don't really care. Be you, you know, like do you, if that makes you happy. Like I don't care,
but
you know.
On the other end in like Washington and Oregon being proposed, where parents can be arrested if they're not immediately affirming their child and their child taken away. So that's the other end of
it's like, yeah, it's crazy.
Like parents know their kids, like take an hour to listen to what's going on in the family, because they're saying that it's conversion therapy. Well, you know, one of my friends was telling me about, you know, her daughter went in and they had a discussion, and their daughter's gay, and you know, it was like, well, if you're interested in this sex, then you know, you may be trans. And it's like, wait, that's another thing that we were told wasn't happening. So, you know, with these clinics, I just want to make sure that there's actual mental health care happening, looking into trauma, because there is a big difference, you know, for female to male with this early onset, with what's being called early onset gender dysphoria. It's happening as soon as they hit puberty. And so many of these people have backgrounds in trauma, or they don't want to be sexualized, which the thing is that people are making these assumptions who can either benefit from them or haven't experienced it. So they're painting the worldview of it, you know, as maybe a trans person who was male to female, you know, and saying this was my experience. And I have empathy for that. I have empathy for them wanting to protect people from the pain that they went through. I get that, and I understand it. But at the same time, the experience could be, and the experience in puberty can be different for a girl. Can be different for someone who's been socialized for a girl, for the type of hormones that we get hit with, and if you talk to other, you know, women who've gone through puberty, you know, and you talk to them, it's like almost all of us have the same story about how it felt when we went through that point. We didn't want these things. We didn't, you know, a lot of us were like, I don't want to be a girl, like, or I wish I could be standing up, or, you know, you know, I want to play football. Football is like a big deal. I want to play sports. I want to be athletic. I want to, you know, so a lot of us do buck against the like stereotypical female stereotype when we hit puberty. And a lot of us have that feeling of, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do any of this, which is understandable, because it sucks. Like, you know, going through your monthly cycle and, you know, things starting to hurt all over. And
yeah, your body hurts and it's changing and like all this stuff is happening. And, you know, it's not a comfortable time, especially if you're, you know what I mean, you've always been kind of like one of the other gender, you know what I mean? Like more like one of the girls or one of the boys. Like if you've always been kind of like that, it kind of like, it becomes like a divisive time. It's like, oh, whoa, okay, wow, like things are really different now. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, all these, it's an awkward time for people, and I don't think it's a time for kids to be able to make a life altering decision. You know, and
there's other ways we can support. You know, we can support by seeing. There really needs to be check-ins, like deep check-ins to where they're at, because affirmation for everyone immediately might not be the best. I don't know how you can determine that.
What can you ever go in and self-affirm? Like, can you, what medical, like, thing can you go in and say that you are, and the doctor takes your word for it?
Nothing.
Like, even if you're like, if you go in and say, "Oh, I'm depressed," like, well, you have to have medical training in order for that. Like, for the you know, you can say you're depressed, but that doesn't mean the doctor's gonna like say, "Yo, yeah, well, then let me put you on antidepressants." You say you're depressed, and that's it. You know what I mean?
A lot of people,
it should be a process. It shouldn't be like the first or the second visit. Like, it's just how it's the quickness that it's happening that makes me go, whoa, how come we can get gender affirming care but we can't get health care?
And I was told that this wasn't happening. But then if you actually read the paperwork, you go and you read these clinics and you read what's happening, and then you talk to people there. You know, it was very different having a conversation with like a person at a clinic than it was an endocrinologist, because an endocrinologist told me, you know, maybe you don't want to seek this kind of treatment immediately. Here's the list, and get a huge list of side effects that puberty blockers can cause. And that was kind of like an awakening moment for me, because she was trans. Like, the person who was giving me this list, she was a trans woman, and that's what she called herself to me. And she gave me this list of all the things that can happen for female to male transitioners. And my mind was blown, because I've been reading from the CDC, from the NIH, from, you know, the World Psychological Organization, from all these, you know, advocacy groups like the Trevor Project, that from the Mayo Clinic, that it does not have long-term effects. There are 0 side effects. And then
they're all in line. They're all in line in their lane of propaganda. Right.
I went back and read it, Lucky, and what I discovered is on down it'll talk about, you know, how, yes, this was prescribed to people that had early onset puberty too early in life, you know, but they would stop giving the medication at like 6 or 7 or 8 and allow natural puberty to happen. So this is the first time they're using it to actually block like when puberty is supposed to happen.
Well, how are you supposed to know?
There is research, just not as much in the United, and that research is being tossed aside, even though it's like a huge body of research coming from the Nordic countries, for instance. And I don't know why we can't. I understand that the right wing is having a crazy meltdown, you know, that's similar to like the satanic panic. I get that, and we should be standing up against that, and we should say no. We protect trans people's rights to exist, and that's extremely important.
Just like everybody, every human has the right to exist and have the same rights. Mm-hmm. You know, every human, like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody is greater or less than that. That's how I see it. You know, I mean, every human should have the equal rights, equal playing field, equal equality for everybody, you know? And the thing is how can a child, I mean, what decisions would you have made as a child if that option was given to you? If you were in this situation, if you were a teenager growing up now, being somebody that, you know what I mean, is on the spectrum, and you didn't really fit into like whatever regular social, you know, norms, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't fit into the typical stereotype, right? I feel like we would be vulnerable to getting caught up into this type of thing, because they're literally telling people, you know, like, that a child can decide whether they want to grow up to be a man or a woman, you know, and go through puberty. But how do you know if you haven't grown up you haven't gone through puberty? How do you know that? If you haven't gone through puberty, how do you know that you feel like a different gender? Is what I've
heard the term gender euphoria, and it's like, well, I don't have gender euphoria, and I'm like, so now euphoria is the benchmark, you know?
I don't know what that. I don't know what that means. I know, like, my trans friends that I've asked about, you know what I mean? Like, they just say they don't feel like when they're on the T or whatever, or on estrogen, like, they felt like themselves. They felt normal for themselves. Like, they felt, you know, and that was where they were supposed to be. But
which is wonderful for the people that, you know, need
And
it.
those are adults. I support adults making their own medical decisions. But I don't support the fast tracking, the way that they're doing everything so fast for people that are, and we're seeing more and more people that are detransitioning after they, you know what I mean, and some of these people, they're taking, when you take hormones, when you go on testosterone or estrogen, you're not taking a normal amount. You're taking like 3 or 4 times the amount because you're going against the grain. You know what I mean? Like you're going against, you're going upriver, and you have to flood the system with even more to overpower what's already there, what's naturally there. I mean,
Well,
like,
I see some really concerning things like on the Planned Parenthood websites that I've gone to, and you know, I support, you know, pro-choice. I'm pro-choice when it comes to abortion.
absolutely.
I support, like I said, I support, you know, trans kids getting help, you know, and getting support in transitioning. But I went on to these websites and I feel like they're way over here when we're talking about propaganda, like way over here somewhere in left field, because what they're describing and that I'm seeing is that kids know by 2 or 3. And that the benchmarks that parents should look for, some of these websites are saying the benchmarks that parents should look for, and these are Planned Parenthood websites, some other children's hospitals websites that I've gone to, are saying that, you know, if your little girl is playing with little boy toys, or, and it's all these like stereotypical.
It's pushing us into stereotypes.
And then the one thing is they said, if your child is gender fluid, and I was like, why would they need to come to a gender clinic if they're gender fluid? I don't understand. Aren't most of us like, why do you need to go and get anything?
Why do girls have to wear pink and boys have to wear blue? I feel like we're being repressed. Like
I've even
we are.
seen a guide, like to share with your children, that I got off of one of the Planned Parenthood sites, like that was supposed to help with like having the conversation, and it had like blue on one side and pink on the other, Barbies on one side, GI Joe on the other, and it's like, where are you? And then it asks, where are you? And then it explains at the bottom, you know, that gender is a spectrum. And I'm like, GI Joe and Barbie and pink and blue, what does that have to do with anything? And I'm like, is this what? Because I don't want to agree with the right wing. I am not right wing. I don't even like those labels. But when I see this stuff as a mom,
you just know it's not right. You just know. You're like, okay, you know, and how easy is it to like
reinforcement I've been fighting against, that we've been fighting against our whole lives as, you know, women. It feels like, you know, it reminds me of the movie. Have you ever seen Fried Green Tomatoes?
Oh yeah, a long time ago.
Iggy, you know, Iggy was lovable and amazing, but she was also very gender fluid. And Iggy would climb the trees, throw the clothes off, wear the boys' clothes, fight, you know, and get in. And that was her whole character, because part of this was normalizing it. It was very normalized in the South, and it was almost kind of loved in a way. And then,
I grew up. I lived in the South for a while when I was a little girl, and that's what it was. You know, like it was just normal for the girls and the boys, all the kids, to go out and get dirty,
play in the creek, catch crawdads. There was, and then you also have like all these androgynous, you know, the whole androgynous rock movement in the 80s and 90s. You know, you had the big hair band, you had like Poison, you know, you had Prince and David Bowie, and you had models who were androgynous and famous for being androgynous. You had Stevie Nicks, who pushed the boundaries of what it was to be, you know, an effeminate female. So we had all of this, and I feel like really stamping like a finite label on it is kind of like counter to that whole revolution that happened in some ways. I see where it's coming from. I see it's a part of exploration. I think that's beautiful. But at the same time, I see a lot of people really stressed with their mental health, trying to figure out what their label is. Like, so stressed out, not only on TikTok, but almost every parent I know of a teenager says that this is one of the biggest stress points for their kid, is trying to figure out what this particular label is. So instead of kids talking about, hey,
and it's a label that's going to affect the rest of your life.
This is my favorite music, you know, hey, I shop at Hot Topic, you know, I shop at Belk's and I get the, you know, snooty clothes or whatever.
I like to do thrifting or whatever. Yeah, it's like it's like ruining everything. It's taking the air out of the room where like it used to be, you know what I mean? And now it's like, oh, they don't like people that they call cis people. And it's like, well, I don't fit that definition either, because a cis is like your sex assigned at birth, right? And that means that like a girl that was born, that was assigned a female at birth, falls into the female stereotype. It doesn't. If you are like a tomboy or whatever, or a tomgirl, then you don't fit into the cis narrative. Like you don't fit in that. It's only like the way that they wrote the definition of it up. It's literally like that you fit into the stereotype, basically, of that gender that you were assigned at birth. It's like, I've never fit into any neat little box of anything, and it feels like it's just more categories. But it's just like it's another category, it's another box to put people in, and I don't want to be put in that. Like, you know, we fought against that, you know, like that was growing up as a Gen X. Like that was really like, you know, it was about individualism and being who you were, and you know, like all the people that like grew like that like loved like Rage Against the Machine, and like, you know, like we were like, oh,
subversion was celebrated.
It was celebrated, and now it's like you have to like conform to these weird like things and all these extra labels, and it's like there's just so much.
Well, I saw guides like on the Trevor Project and also on a couple of other websites for like sexuality, and this was like for 12, 13, 14-year-olds, sometimes younger. And it had them listed out like pansexual, bisexual, you know, all these different sexualities, you know, asexual. And I was like, wait a second, though. I support the LGBTQ community. I know that kids are going to have questions and explore, but what happened to, it's fine if they talk about it on the bus or they explore amongst themselves. Why are adults coming in and telling a 10-year-old that they can be pansexual without they've never had sex? They don't know what you're talking about. That's not sex ed. Sex ed is, it tells you how your body parts work and the fact that babies can be made. And that, yes, different people can like.
It's about biology and how things work and what's happening. That's, you know, like you're going to be going through all these changes, and you know, it's a health lesson. It's not supposed to be about your sexuality lesson. It's that they're like blurring those lines.
It's okay. People can have feelings for anyone, regardless of, you know, what they, you know, if they're a man or a woman or whatever. But now you've got like, it's so many conversations. My friends that are parents are telling me that their kids are just like literally consumed a lot of times. We're talking about how we work through it as parents, and we're trying to come together to like figure it out. Like, my daughter, she's got a ton of other interests, and she's amazing and brilliant and she's freaking genius, and I love her. But I see the burden on the kids in general of like, you know, going through this, like figuring out, am I pansexual? Am I this? Am I that? Like, am I demisexual? I don't even know what half the things mean, or, you know, figuring out putting the label on the gender, which sounds freeing. But when you actually talk to the parents and then you like see the social media, or you understand, or you go to TikTok and you look at the little kids talking, I'm talking about little kids like 12, 13, 14 years old. To me, it's a little kid talking about this. They're stressed all to hell. They're stressed all to hell because they're expected to have this. And then they're getting pressure if they decide to change. Nobody wants to be cis.
They're alienated if they transition back. They're completely alienated from the same group of people that were completely supportive of them, and they got like all this extra attention and all this love, and you know what I mean? Like it's overwhelming when it's only affirmation. Like if you're only getting like one side of something and you're not getting a balanced, like, you know what I mean? There's no balance to it.
No, it's one way. It's a one-way trip.
It's like, woo, you know, it's like
you go to the doctor and they're like, yeah, well, we're going to affirm your care. And then your parents are all on board and everybody's all on board.
And they threaten your parents and say, if you don't affirm them, then they'll commit suicide.
Right.
And that's scary.
That they will commit suicide. And so what I'm seeing on TikTok, what I'm hearing from other friends with kids, like I know of them who their kids are now claiming to be depressed and suicidal because they say I'm supposed to be because I'm trans. So it's like,
if they're reinforcing it, they're reinforcing something.
Like, which one came first, the chicken or the egg in this scenario? And I know that sounds awful, but a lot of the studies are based on studies that are 20 years old, female to male. I mean, male to female. Not many studies have been done just recently on female to male. And that's why the Tavistock closed down. That's why they have shifted away from the affirmation model in a lot of the Nordic countries, such as the Dutch are shifting away from the affirmation model.
Yeah, and Sweden, I think they shut down all of that. Anything before a certain age.
It's creating depression in some people. For some people, it can be life-saving. And I'm not saying that it should be completely banned. But just like anything in medicine, it should be regulated to make sure that the safety of the patient is number one. And it happens even before. A lot of people are talking about like the medications, but it happens even before because it happens with the mental health step too. Are we truly screening people? And why is it free to go to these clinics, but other mental health services aren't free for like sexual abuse? Something like that is uncovered. Sometimes the kid has nowhere to go. They're automatically getting affirmed that this is
the only medical care that they're going to get is from a gender identity, a gender clinic where they get the affirmation care, and that's the only medical that we can that some kids will get.
To me, it seems like,
and that's scary.
The fact that that there is such a lack of healthcare, but that is so readily available shows that there's an agenda. There's a fast track for this to happen. And
it's a multi-billion-dollar industry already.
Yeah. And they're making forever patients.
Yeah, and you're a forever patient. And we've had Lady Alex on before, and we've talked about like sexual health, and like actually having orgasms is very important. It's extremely important. And what is happening when they stop kids from going through puberty? They don't get to have that. And then sometimes if they go on puberty blockers and then they go on the opposite,
adults, they can't have that as adults. Yeah.
Right. They won't be able to later on. A lot of times their reproductive organ, like even if they go on the hormones and go off of them, some people's bodies like do go back to, if a woman takes the testosterone to transition and then goes back off of it, a lot of times they will go back to having like a normal like period and stuff, but that's not always the case. No, that's not always the case.
It can be really damaging.
And it's making people sterile. You know what I mean? And
the idea that the mental health of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the borderline personality disorder and, just being autistic are like the numbers are, it's almost 50%. Like, and that's just what they know of.
Things to fit in a kind of clean box a lot of times. I mean, I struggled with this when I was younger. I struggled with identity when I was young. I did because I went through sexual abuse when I was young. Mm-hmm. And I'm bi. So the first person I ever dated out after the sexual abuse was 2 girls, and
women are different. It's a completely different experience like that I've had with a woman, even if it was a butch woman compared to a man. There's a complete difference. Like there is just an energy difference. There's, you know what I mean? Like there's it. you know, and maybe not everybody has experienced that, but you know, like so it
It's
just
okay to struggle. It's okay to, you know, and it's okay to seek help. But what I would like to see from these clinics and from the help, you know, is not necessarily what the right wing is doing. It's no kids can get any treatment ever. Like no one can be evaluated, because there are some that need the help, but more somewhere in between, where the evaluations, the affirmative quick care model is actually questioned, because the data is showing that that is not an accurate way to handle this. And there's many in the trans community that are freaking out about it. I've got a few trans friends that are like, what the hell? And so,
and the people that are trans that speak out,
and all the websites say that there's no research. And I'm like, then why are you doing it if there's no research? But then they'll quote research that's like 20 years old, very small sample sizes, and mostly male to female, and mostly adulthood. So, like, I'm seeing very little information. And so that's what I've been asking for. Where's the information? And now I'm starting to get it, you know, from some people. When you talk about propaganda, I was sharing that. I was saying, this isn't happening in the clinics. This isn't, no, they're being evaluated. No, you know, puberty blockers are completely reversible. Now,
You do.
I am someone that always
Yeah.
checks everything. I double check everything. I'm a journalist. I'm an investigative journalist.
but because we're alienated though.
And here I am sharing this information without double checking it, because this topic is so scary to talk about. Like all the parents like are terrified to ask anyone about this, because they're most of them are left, and they're left leaning, and they're afraid of being ostracized just for asking questions about this.
Because
that's not okay, because parents need support too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that because the right is so loud about it, and then like, so what's the opposite? The left is like so quiet about it, and then you know, and that's what we were talking
loud
about.
in the opposite direction. That's just so fringe sometimes.
Because we can't agree with them,
I'd like
right? Like we don't want to agree with the right, you know, like we don't want to, like, because we get labeled this, or we get called transphobe, or a turf, or I don't know. There's all these like different
titles. Here's another one I'd like to bring up. A small fringe group that seems to be growing exponentially, but the trans gingers. They're people too, you know. They can't help their hair color, and you guys better stop being bigots against them.
Oh my god.
Gray Walker. I think Gray Walker might be a closet transgender. I'm not judging. I'm just guessing.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
But like, yeah, and then like, you know, it's like you go out of the lane, or you ask a question about something, or you know, that's, you know what I mean, if you're one of the first, or you know, you're one of the few, then you'll get a lot of pushback, and you'll get like, you know, people will start looking at you different, like, wait, are they like a right winger or something?
Or was a Marines commercial for a second.
And most of these people doing this, they're not parents. Oh, sorry, Steve was talking.
No, that's okay. See, I thought she was quoting a Marines commercial for a second. There's like the few, the proud.
No, I'm not.
Ginger.
Oh my god, that's great.
I feel like the left is going to lose people with this particular issue.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Gray Walker.
I think in like 5 or 10 years too, we're gonna have a generation of kids that are gonna be pissed off that the adults didn't protect them.
Allow this fucking nonsense to happen. Like, there's no like oversight. You know what I mean? There's like a fast track for all these people that used to be like a really long, drawn out process to start taking these.
Yeah,
these
my friend went through it.
These drugs to change your.
And it was years of like therapy before like they got the actual affirmation that they were a transsexual, you know what I mean? They were transsexual and this and that. And like
all my friends that went through that process,
a long time.
My friends that went through that process are grateful that they did.
Yeah, because then they really know.
And they know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's just like there's too much grease in the wheels allowing children to just proclaim that that's how they are and this is the way it is, and now we're going to start that process of doing the thing, and then halfway through go, you know what, wait a second, I don't feel any different than I did before, and this might be a bad idea, after they've already been doing it for a long time, and some of these things are irreversible. It just seems like there's no concern for the danger for that child, who's still a child making that frigging choice, that people are affirming.
I mean, if you think about it, if a child would say they were anorexic or bulimic and they were like, okay, I need to go get liposuction.
Yeah.
Would you allow that?
You wouldn't give them liposuction.
Would you just affirm and say, oh yeah, you need to have surgery. You are so fat.
Do you guys remember the song Feel Unpretty?
Yeah.
I was thinking about that a lot, because that video came out. You know why that video came out? That video came out and the song came out, and TLC wrote it because a bunch of girls were getting, breast implants and nose jobs and plastic surgery.
Oh, yeah.
And poor people were getting super depressed because they couldn't afford those things. So there's also a class divide in all.
Yeah. You look on TikTok or anything like that, or even YouTube Shorts, it's like constant beauty now, even.
And the wealth and equity is greater now than it ever has been.
And some of these stereotypes, like these closets that they're building at Planned Parenthood and stuff like that, are, one side has, sponsored by Sephora and makeup and all these hair care products and stuff. And then the other side has very stereotypical. So there's a boys and a girls closet that are like extremely stereotypical. And that's reinforcing all these beauty standards. And with these beauty standards too, a lot of these girls, but even, some of the male to female, but particularly female to male, are feeling like, I don't look like this. I would be better off as a boy because I don't match the standard. But 10, 20 years ago, one of my friends told me in Iran, like all the girls were getting nose jobs and she didn't get one. I'm Iranian. And she was like, you still have your original nose. And I was like, yeah, I'm poor. She decided to keep hers, but it was like a thing. You get rid of your Iranian nose. And I thought that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
What?
Where did it come? I am all for people being able to do what they do with their own body, but I'm also for, at the same time, this can happen where we say being healthy is good, but also it's society shouldn't put pressures on us to where we feel like in order to feel okay, we have to go get our face redone and plastic surgery. What are you talking about? Go start. That one back there.
She's already out.
She's already out, bro. Come on. You can't see.
So cute. We have the best chat. Oh my god.
I totally got distracted and forgot what I was talking about.
We were talking about beauty standards and like, like just, yeah. And there's some people that, like, especially like there's people that are like, they look really like kids that I've seen grow up like really awkward during like puberty, like really awkward looking. And then they turn out to be like the most like beautiful, like young lady. Like I've seen it like so many times. It's like, you just need to let things, like let it go. Like, and we need to like be more celebratory of, people with like, if they have like a quirk or, like something weird or, like just being more accepting and like remembering that like even like celebrities
plastic now, you don't have like as many of the like Julia Roberts out there. You know what I mean? You don't have, if I look back like on the people that were like famous when I was younger and all through, like even the models and stuff, they were all like really dynamic. And I see that kind of happening some in mainstream media, but I'm talking about a lot in our culture. It's still very like, it's extremely plastic, like a lot of makeup. And I'm only wearing a lot now because I'm old as shit. But it's a lot of makeup. And if people want to wear a lot to feel good, that's great. But also, I think it's okay to say that we should be working toward normalizing, non-typical beauty standards. We should be working toward normalizing it's okay not to wear makeup. We should be working toward
Yeah, I
normalizing
don't really wear makeup.
it's okay to have large ones. It's okay to have a badonkadonk. It's okay to be
Yeah.
apple shaped or pear shaped, or it's okay
encouraged.
to be like a skinny dude, and not be like massive buff with hair all over your body. It's okay to be, and I feel like we've lost that somehow. Like I feel like that was something that we were focused on all the way through the early 2000s, and now it's just kind of gone. And I feel like people instead are saying accept people if they want to get a nose job, and I'm like, it's fine if they do. I'm okay with that. But also,
yeah, we're not saying you can't. Like, it's just that we want to. We need to be less. I think less focused on a certain standard of beauty, and like Hollywood doesn't help with that, right? Like Hollywood like reinforces that constantly, and then then the trends become like, I mean, like the way that they do makeup now, I'm like, holy shit. Like, I never did all that with like makeup and all these great, like all the contouring and like, I can make my double chin go away. I'm like,
and the filters
yes.
are propaganda in themselves. The filters are kind of like, there's a new TikTok filter. I think it's called Glamour or something like that. And it will literally, you put it on your face and it's so realistic and it makes you look like, it basically shows, it's kind of creepy because it like shows you all the things you kind of wish you were. A lot of people say like you all of a sudden have pouty lips and all of this stuff. And I now look at myself. I used to have no confidence at all, and now I look at myself. I'm like, she's kind of cute,
yeah, you are. You're adorable.
I thought I was such a toad, that I was so ugly, and especially in my 20s, I didn't feel attractive, and it's a whole thing that I think that we all go through, but media does make it worse. But for a while, we actually had songs like those by TLC. We actually had a push toward accepting people and yeah, you get like the virtue signal from like the Dove commercials and stuff. Mm-hmm. But in most media, what we see is like the stuff and on social media and everywhere else where everyone's on film all the time, people are always like way done up in order to not be judged. I even find myself doing that. Hey, aggravated.
Yeah, see, he said Zainab don't know she's beautiful.
She's obviously hard.
You're beautiful.
She got seeing problems. That's why. Get some glasses, girl.
I know, like I think I started wearing glasses when I was like 10, but for years, like I wouldn't like wear them because it was like a thing. It was like, oh, I didn't want to wear glasses, like, but now
They're
it's
awesome on you though. They suit you so well.
Yeah, I finally figured out the right, like, it's like the shape to get and stuff like that. And now I just get like a variety of like basically the same glasses in different color. Like
I do too. Mine are similar to yours. Let's see.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, like I've had like ones that had like, I usually shop in the kids department too, because like I don't know. It's just I don't have a very wide like face like right there. So kids glasses
I have to too.
Fit perfect. And I get really cool like designs and stuff on them, and I'm like, yeah, I like it. Now it's like I can't go without my glasses. So but remember when I was younger though, when I first got glasses, I didn't like it. I didn't want to wear them. I was just like, oh, but eventually I had to wear them because my stigmatism got so bad. Was like, and then like contacts weren't really a thing. Like I tried them like years and years ago, but they just dried my eyes out because I have this stigmatism and they move on my eyes. So it was just like out of necessity. I just got used to like, just having my glasses on. But like, yeah, I remember like that was an awkward, time being a teenager and like, glasses and like not wanting to wear them, but not being able to
glasses and braces. And all that I wore all the time was like
Horrible.
army jackets, oftentimes with dresses underneath and giant ass Doc Martens.
I still wear big old Doc Martens. I got purple ones. Steve has red ones, and Sky's are black. Like weird Doc Marten wears in his house. I have a
Vans. I had Vans that I loved.
Yep. I used to love my Vans. Oh my gosh. Yep. I know. I was telling Steve earlier, like in high school, it was like really common. I was either wearing like, a tie dye or like, like a Kurt Cobain shirt or, something like that, or like a men's V-neck undershirt. That was like that was like my go-to. Like I wore that with a men's flannel and like, the skater jeans, the wide legged like skater jeans and shit. Like I was always dressed up in boys' clothes. Like I would just my outfits would go from that, and then sometimes I would wear, like a green Mr. Rogers sweater with my tie dye or something. I went from like, and I would wear barrettes in my hair or whatever. I looked like presented like a female, but I wore like the guy's clothes, and that's what I like to do. And I still
would have a weird mix. I would wear like blue jean skirts or fleet plaid skirts. Like I had a gazillion plaid skirts, and I would go with like tennis shoes or combat boots or like oftentimes like tennis shoes. One of my favorites to wear them with was Adidas Dragons. I had a couple pairs of those. And I thrift stored a lot, so I would get like those old, and I still have a bunch of them. I love them, but old like Agner jackets, like the red jackets, like leather, or I would wear like army jackets over like a fluffy, really like 1950s dress.
See, I love it. Yeah, like, but we grew up in that time, and that's like that was totally like we were expressive, and that was normal, and it was fine. And so like now it's like
sometimes, but you thrift, like everyone went to thrift stores, like that was a whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we went to church sales. There was a church that was by my house in high school, and like, oh my gosh, I still have this pair of pants. They are like this like baby blue, sky kind of blue and white, like squares or whatever, like little dots on them. But they're polyester, like 60.
Church sale right here.
Yes, absolutely. Like that was what we were all about. We loved it. I wore so much like, like vintage clothes and thrifted stuff, and like altered my own clothes, and
oh yeah,
it was a really unique time. And I feel like, I don't know, something is happening now where like that part of it, whatever that was, that natural, like, that self-expression that was there, I feel like it's been like propagandized out of us and became, and they turned it into like this medical transition that they want kids to have or something. I don't know. It feels like that really like, those awkward teenage years were supposed to, like, it's like the most fun years that you have. And like, I feel like the kids now, it's like they're just so full of anxiety over everything. And like, because they're so propagandized into thinking that they have to choose now between, like what gender they want to be or not be. And it's like, yeah, but like they can just be who they are too. Like I think that's something that should be more acceptable, and not like not pushing them into like a stereotype of you have to be this way to be a boy, or you have to be this way to be a girl.
And
or
it's built around outside. It's all built around the affirmation, because it's like with the pronouns thing and everything. I understand respecting people's pronouns.
Yeah.
I have friends that are have transitioned, and I understand how, that's helpful and also respectful to do. But on the other token, and my trans friends didn't like this either, but I have worked with people who are like from privileged upper middle class, especially white girls, I'm just gonna be honest, who have picked up pronouns, and then will get like really feisty about people not using it and make it a big deal, and that's their oppression. And that's their oppression. And I'm like, I'm sorry that it's so stressful for you that last week you were fee-fi and today you're Zere and I got it wrong. I'm so sorry. You need to be respectful. That's transphobic. And I'm like, I'm trying. And that is real stuff I've had happen in organizing circles. And that does not help the trans community. You are not helping.
It doesn't. It's regressive. It's regressive. It's like this new ideology that's happening, and the way that they're pushing people so far, they're actually losing people within the community. They're losing support.
It's doing it. It's like, it's not necessarily.
No, it's like the activists. It's not really like the trans people that are really doing all of it. A lot of it is like the activists around it, and the people that think they're allies that are just parroting what is being parroted.
Like, man, you're not being helpful, because I saw some of my some of my trans friends, it actually made things awkward for them when those people were behaving that way. They were like, could you please not do that, please? But when something is built around, because they had gone through enough therapy and enough time and expression and stuff to have their own self-worth within themselves. So if somebody misgendered, which really didn't happen, but if somebody did, they told me, I know who I am within myself. They had enough time.
Yeah, you shouldn't need an external person to affirm who you are, because you should just, you should know who you are. And that's one thing with the borderline personality disorder that comes up, is that is a trait, is that you don't know who you are. Like, that is something that is part of that. And I mean, and that's like, and that's in the DS, the actual psychologist, the book, the DSM-5 or whatever. And so if that's the case, and it's affecting a lot of those, the people with borderline personality disorder, then that makes for like the perfect storm to be catastrophic. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It really sets people up for failure. And I'm concerned.
Self-worth is based on affirmation from others instead of self-affirmation. So if clinics aren't teaching self-affirmation, aren't teaching, and helping people walk through and figure out,
and they're not told no,
or giving you enough time, and if their argument is hold up puberty so that people have enough time, but they don't have research on what the impacts are going to be, then maybe that isn't the solution. Okay, so this may sound upsetting. I don't mean to draw complete parallels, but I am going to talk about the pharmaceutical industry for a second. I'm from Appalachia, and I can remember when oxycodone and OxyContin and all these other pharmaceuticals were brought in to help people with persistent pain, and the thing
I was prescribed for years medications like that.
Mm-hmm. And they were I remember that I worked restaurants back then, and the reps would come in from the pharmaceutical companies, and they would be buying all this food and taking the people out that are working in the doctor's offices. And every Friday we knew it was rep day, and we would get like tons of orders from reps. And I would see them, and I knew people that were pharmaceutical reps. It was a whole thing. And some of the things that they were telling people is, this isn't addictive. This isn't addictive. People can get off of them easily. It's not dangerous. There's no long-term effects. 20 years later, hundreds and hundreds of millions of pills were pumped into Appalachia and Ohio and the Rust Belt and places where they poisoned us.
I had bottles and bottles Like I had more than I could take.
I could tell you stories. My sister's ex-husband had the back of an 80-year-old man with just degenerative spine. His back was falling apart, and they would give him everything. He literally had like a Siemens chest full of like Oxy 30s and Oxy 20s and Oxy 40s, Oxy 80s, Oxy 160s. I never saw them other than the ones that he had. I never saw those in real life. And I did plenty of those. I was addicted for years of those stupid things. And like it was just like an inundation
because they cut people off. They
were also incentivizing the doctors to use this medicine. Here, boom. How much? What do you need? The first time I got,
and there are these clinics and hospitals are being incentivized by not only the pharmaceutical companies that are paying for these like awards that they're giving to these places, but in the Trevor Project, who, for instance, gives those awards. And if you look up the Trevor Project, and we're supposed to be critical as leftists, a massive amount of their fundraising comes from corporations, and some of them pharmaceuticals. So I suggest people go and look and make sure that they're true allies for the LGBTQ community. I mean, because they're building forums where people 13 and up can go on and talk to strangers online, and that aren't
up to the age of, what was it, 23?
Talking about their sexuality with like someone who's like a creepy 50-year-old man. They could be talking to a what was his name, Scott Ritter.
It's kind of weird like that. Like there's this facility for it, right, to get you on the billing cycle as young as possible, and that's the motivation for I so much of this stuff. I see it like
you're forever
that blows up cancer treatment as well. It's like this like, like they just keep making it bigger by getting people involved sooner and giving them things that are like, well, we don't know what's going to happen, but you might cure your cancer.
And then they're just not held liable. Like there's the whole liability. Look at the opioid epidemic. And look at what, like, they're still doing what they're doing.
What they paid out for fines was just like the cost of doing business. It was a pittance compared to the billions, trillions.
The execs aren't held responsible. They knew, and they're not being held responsible. And now, what do we think is going to happen with this? It's really scary. I see us repeating history, like remember lobotomies, when lobotomies were like real, well, I don't remember lobotomies personally, but like, lobotomies were like the huge thing, and that's how they treated. That's what their treatment was. It was this, and now we look back at it and go, oh my gosh, why did, like, wow.
Be critical when it's a for-profit industry. And what's so amazing to me is there's so many quote unquote leftists that are anti-corporate, that are just like, shut your mouth about this. You can't be critical about this. Don't ask questions. You're a TERF. And I'm like, dude, I'm not saying that, kids shouldn't get support. I'm not saying that trans people shouldn't exist. I'm going to be right there fighting for you against the bills in Florida, against the bills in these places. But I'm also going to be standing and fighting against the bills in Washington and Oregon that are trying to force parents to medically transition their kids, because that is fucked up too. Like both of those things.
Yes.
Like, why can't we have a conversation and say, this is fucked up? This is fucked up too.
Right.
Why are we doing these two things? Especially when it's medical lobby groups that are lobbying for those laws in Washington and Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we did that. We did that episode about how much money there is in it.
It is shady as hell.
And it's like,
its face.
And it's like, where am I going to get any left leaning journalism? Like, I had to use Matt Walsh as my source because that's the only, that was the source that actually put it out there. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, I can't go back and get that footage any other way. He was the one that was there. So I had to use his footage. And it's like, I'm not endorsing this guy. I'm not saying that, you know what I mean? But that's the
You can
reality.
acknowledge that his reasons he put it out could be hateful and nefarious,
Yeah.
but also you
Yeah.
have to look at the content itself. What are those hospitals saying?
Right.
Yeah, it
It's
wasn't
kind of
about
irrelevant what his motive is. The information is the thing
it
that's
was
important.
it was the video of what it was that was important, you know. But yeah, I mean, like the numbers are absolutely crazy with how much, you know, like you're making a forever medical patient. You are literally, even if they detransition, a lot of times there's complications. And you know, like, so even then, like, and the thing is, like, they'll pay for you to have the surgeries, but they won't, if you detransition, they will not pay for you to like fix it or whatever. Insurance it's a completely different thing. Then it's cosmetic surgery. It's like
the last time it was counted by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and other sites, it was or other organizations, it was at 1.95 billion in the U.S. the market.
That's crazy.
It is now targeted to be up to $5 billion industry within the next 3 years, because of the percentage of youth who have identified. The New York Times just put out an article who are identifying and going into these clinics. The waiting list can be now up to 6 months to a year because so many thousands are signing up. 25% of people under 17 are now identifying as LGBTQ, with at least 18% of those identifying as transgender.
Wow. So like we're seeing an increase that is like, I mean, it's on like upward trend completely. Like we're gonna, wow. I talked to a neighbor, and she had a friend over, and her daughter goes to one of the local schools, and she said that she pulled her child out of public school because they were letting the boys who were saying that they were transgender go into the girls' bathroom. Like they could just say it and they couldn't do anything about it. And this girl was like shy, like, I'm sorry, but a young lady going through puberty or having her period, you know what I mean? Like that stuff makes noise. You know what I mean? Opening up a pad in the bathroom and you know, like your tampon wrapper, it's a different thing. And like, I don't know that I would feel like, you know, completely comfortable as a teenage girl doing that if there was, you know, I mean, like no males in the bathroom with me, you know. So there's girls that aren't going to the bathroom and that like are avoiding the bathroom. So this mother pulled her daughter out of public school and like put her in a different program. So that, because she's just a shy girl and it just is so uncomfortable for her. And it's like, that's not fair to when a small percentage of the population, like it is a small percentage of the population. And I know that's why a lot of people on the left are like, oh, it's no big deal, right? Because it's only a small part of the population. But when one small part of the population can have such a huge effect on the overall population and people have to change everything that they're doing, that does affect the larger part of the population. So, you know, like people need to understand that too, why these issues do matter. And because it is growing and it's being like, it's just kind of like going under like the radar right now. I feel like on, at least on the more left side of it, it's just like when we started talking about this and like, you know, and having conversation about it, that's why it was so important, because it was like, okay, there's somebody else that understands and that's thinking about this stuff critically and that also supports that community as well. You know, and it's a really kind of like a hard place to be and to feel like, you know, I don't want to be offensive to, you know what I mean, to that community. And I don't, you know what I mean? Like
supportive, because I know that, you know, I mean, if you're presenting as, you know, trans and you've transitioned, and you have the markers, it can be uncomfortable and even dangerous to go into a men's room, for instance. So they're at risk. But then you have asshats. There are it's becoming more and more common that asshats are taking advantage of it, like freakers are literally taking advantage of it. So we actually have to have a conversation about, okay, the thing
there's going to be
is happening, like in California, when they opened up for people to be able to just write down and self-identify and switch prisons, they had a massive influx with a large percentage of those dudes being sexual predators, but they weren't screening for sexual predators. They were just moving them over. And it's like, don't do that. You're not helping the trans community by doing that, for one.
Yeah, it's backwards. It's backwards.
And so that's just stupid. And that kind of thing is going to hurt the trans community, because you're going to have people that logically are going to say, what the fuck? And
yeah, because you're not being an ally at that point. Like that's
you're not being an
bringing
ally,
you backwards.
You're bringing, and then you're going to bring the heat down on them, even though it's not their fault. It's those liberal dumbasses that wrote this crazy ass law that makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
That probably most of, the trans community, if you screen them, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course, sexual predators shouldn't be put in with the women.
Right.
Yeah. And there's women that were, like
for others, but I would just assume that most
they were assaulted by, they were assaulted. And then I saw some articles about, women that were saying that, the person wasn't actually like doing even living as like a female in the female prison. Like they were fluid with their, so they kind of went back and forth, and it's like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like you shouldn't really just like self-identify and change because you want to go hang out with all the ladies in prison. I mean, like, no matter what, like, that's just not like
That's what all the boys would
that's yeah, like I mean,
and have the greater discussion about, people will argue and say we need to not have prisons, we need to have prison reform. I agree with all of that. But in the meantime, while we're working toward that, we also have to discuss the real things that are happening right now.
We have to keep women and men both safe. Both genders need to be safe. And we know that people. I've interviewed Emmeline Dowd. She was born intersex, and she didn't find out until she went through puberty that she was intersex. Like, it really, really interesting interview that I did. So like, that is something that happens. It's a rare thing that happens, but typically, like, a person is either male or female, and like, they split the genders for a reason that way. And what is your opinion about the with the sports? You know what I mean? The males who go on to the estrogen and then are joining women's sports.
I think it's
because men's bone structure is different, right?
Yeah.
Men's bone structure is different. If they went through puberty, then they're definitely different. Like, it's just, that's biology.
Well, I have an interesting story on this. I have a friend whose daughter, I'll say daughter because she detransitioned, but she transitioned at 11. So that's young. So she was socially transitioning, went in, played soccer. So he went into middle school at the time and wanted to play soccer, but wanted to stay on the girls' team. Was very good. Like, wanted to stay on the girls' team. They forced him to play on the boys' team, and so he didn't make the team. Ended up transitioning back because, not just because of soccer, obviously, but because they felt like they were truly, not trans. Transitioned back, had some health problems and stuff from being on the hormone blockers, really rough periods when they transitioned back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they were able to then play for the girls' team again, but they were forcing people to play on the teams that are aligned with their gender. So she wasn't able to play on the girls' team. she was forced to play on the boys team, and then after she transitioned, she was able to play on the girls soccer team again. So that's also an interesting dynamic, because it tends to go the other way when females to males transition on the teams. They're not making the teams, they're not making the sports, but they can't try out for girls teams because it's you try out for whatever team is in line with your gender. So that's interesting. But then when it goes the other way, yes, there are sometimes biological advantages that are real that we're starting to see play out. So how do we rectify that? You know what I truly believe? Go back to all the way back to Title IX. Years ago, when we first fought for Title IX in the 1970s, in the 1980s, what we asked for was divisions for sports, divisions for golf, divisions for basketball, divisions for baseball, and they gave us softball instead, divisions for volleyball. So we asked for divisions based on strength, merit, everything else can still have separate, they said, of course, still separate like stalls and dressing rooms and stuff. But when Title IX was first being brought forward, that's what they were asking for, is non-gendered sports. They asked, can we try out at least for golf? Can we compete at least and try out for the basketball teams? Can we try out for whatever teams? And, and have different levels of divisions, kind of like weight classes for boxing. And, of course, they were agreeing that there were some that should remain, gendered. But for the most part, they were asking for non-gendered delineated sports. Like, why the fuck is golf? Why is there men's and women's golf? I mean, really think about it.
It's really lame. Yeah.
I mean, why?
It's like there's no men's and women's skateboarding.
There is. Skateboarding's divided.
Skateboarding should never be divided. I've seen chicks with skating with dudes forever. Like that's what skater kids do.
It's divided though. Everything is divided by gender. But you know why? So that they can give less money to the women's teams in colleges.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's just typical
Yeah.
scumbaggery.
So what we fought for years ago was gendered sports, but no one is having that conversation because they're saying to keep it gendered so that people can be affirmed. And I'm like, what? I'm like, why don't we?
I mean, like even with wrestling and stuff, like you have to, like you know what I mean? Like the thing is that we're not having a conversation at all. It's like you either completely like affirm them and there is just like, like, no, they're in that space and that's it. Or it's completely no. So it's like, we're not really having the conversation that we should be about.
Which is why is there men's and women's golf anyway, damn it, in high schools?
Yeah. What is the cat doing, Steve? The cat is getting into trouble.
Hey.
And you know what? If they had divisions, Lucky and Steve, people would be able to, also men, women, whoever would be able to play at different levels, kind of like varsity, junior varsity and stuff like that. People would be able to play at different levels if it was non-gendered and it was done, on several sliding scales, kind of like Optimus League is, you know what I mean?
I think that would be a good idea. Like, why don't we take the gender out of it and take it should be, the qualifying skill level and stuff. I mean, come on. Like, we are smart people. That is like I think one of the best solutions to it, because there are males that are smaller in frame and lighter, you know what I mean, and they wouldn't be able to compete because they don't they don't meet that standard that they need, you know what I mean, to be picked for the team. But if it was,
we could have like short basketball leagues.
That would be great.
Oh my gosh, you heard it here first. Let's have short basketball leagues.
Short basketball leagues.
Hey, I'm 5'3", okay? I'm all for it. What do you guys think? Should we have short basketball leagues?
I don't know. I can just imagine like Randy Newman's short people got no reason playing in the background and are you ready for your? They'd
be like, all right, we gotta lower the hoop. It's for the short people.
Wait a minute, we're lowering the hoop now, son of a.
They get a little bit.
We can't even have these conversations. It's like, because it's so stuck on like
The propaganda. There's the lanes of propaganda on either way.
I've heard anywhere someone say, well, why don't we go back like to what feminists were fighting for back when Title IX was brought forward? We weren't fighting to have our own little women's leagues. That's not what we fought for in the beginning. It was to degender sports and then to create tiers.
A different, yeah. So I think we should be able to do this. I mean, like that, it makes the most sense. They've got to be doing it somewhere. They've got to be doing this somewhere.
There's several countries where it's common, and in some sports that we've found, it can be common. But there's even divisions in some really stupid things like chess.
Yeah, that's.
Fuck, is there a girls and a boys league in chess?
Well, I don't know. It's boys rule and girls drool. I mean, clearly there's a division there.
Clearly, Steve.
Oh my gosh.
So no one is like, why are we here and here and we're not here? And on so much of this conversation, that's what I find. But I feel like most Americans or most people are like there. And it's not being centrist. It's being common sense. Like the fringe are not always going to be right. And they're often driven by special interest, corporate money on both sides. They're driven by agendas, political agendas. And so the agenda isn't, kids come automatically in and you've got a 3-year-old. You've got these parents out there that it reminds me of the dance moms. Oh, what I'm talking about, like dance moms that dress their kids all up and they take all the pictures and then
wear tiaras and stuff and like they look like little women. Like,
yeah, that's creepy. Yeah. But I see creators now doing this thing where like I have a trans 3-year-old and they're creating a whole YouTube video and TikTok personality and everything around it. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that like putting your kid's struggle up there and then it's a 3-year-old and nothing feels right. And then you see them trying to talk their kids into it. And I'm like, this isn't helping the trans community either. And it's creepy. And then I saw one the other day of a mom, she was talking her kid into talking about how her 5-year-old was a lesbian. They were having whole discussions about it and everything. And I was like, this isn't right, though. Like, there's gay acceptance, and then there's having, like, open conversations and putting it on YouTube of you and your kid talking about them being a lesbian. That's fucked up.
That's weird. That is, like, really sexualizing young children.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Like, it feels like that's what's happening is, like, everything's, like, it's like, so what's going to happen next? Is it going to be like, oh, the age of consent can be lowered, too, if they can identify?
Literally already being made about that on college campuses. Like, I watched a whole talk. And the talk was actually centered around this. I'll have to share the link with you. But the whole talk was centered around how kids start sex earlier and earlier now. And that's why we need to prepare them. But we shouldn't suppress their sexual activity. And they should be able to consent to who they want to consent to. And I was like,
oh, hell no.
I was like, that's when somebody gets punched in the face. Or someone's parents get called. Like, I'm not going to punch another little kid in the face, but
that sounds like grooming predator like behavior. Like that doesn't sound like protecting children. That sounds like giving an adult, like it's like the marriage laws that, like, there's a lot of states that don't even have laws about age of marriage and consent. And a lot of times they'll make a little girl, an underage girl marry somebody that was a, because of an assault, so yeah. That happens, and that shouldn't be okay either. Like we need to realize, like if they can't even buy tobacco or smoke legal weed or sign up for the military, then they shouldn't be making lifelong like medical decisions. Like, what other medical decision do you let your child decide? Like, do you let them decide if they have their, you know what I mean, if they have cancer treatment if they're a kid, you know what I mean? Like, are you just like, oh yeah, you know, go ahead, you can, I'll let you decide. Listen to the doctor and you decide, you know what I mean, what you want to do.
No, you shouldn't decide anything.
You know, the parent's going to guide the child to, you know, the best outcome, you know, hopefully, you know, like, we can't choose for everybody, but, you know, where like, there's nothing else that you just like let a child just have full control over.
It does. Literally, a lot of these clinics and things that I go to says the child will lead the process. The child has full autonomy, full decisions making on when they start, when they stop treatment, how their treatment is to go, the level of evaluation before they start medications. And I'm like, what? That's not right. You know, like, it's very hard to talk about because I'm not a bigot. I do want trans kids to get help. But I want there to be safeguards in place because this is a
it's the fast track that's the problem. It's the fast track of it. It's
a for-profit system, so they have an agenda to make money, you guys. They have an agenda to make money. So when there's an agenda to make money, we should question it, and we should be okay with that. And
absolutely.
we should look at the data and the research, and we should say, okay, we need to have solid evaluations before we start anyone on medications. I mean, you know, especially, you know, children, because these companies and these hospitals are like going into it because it's such a cultural thing that they're like, okay, let's promote it. Let's get it out there. Let's get it in schools. Let's get it everywhere because this is a cash cow. And you hear them talking about it like the video that you shared. You can see it though, just by going to their websites.
You can see the money signs in their eyes. Like they're like, this is where it's at. This is going to blow up and we're going to make it blow up.
That one video of the lady talking to the hospital people, the financial lady breaking it down like what the numbers actually are. That's got to be convincing for anybody. Just like listen to what this woman is saying right now and how excited she is about it. You know? Yeah,
we can put the links in the show notes for the other episodes that we've covered. That, you know, like because we've talked about, you know, trans issues quite a few times, and it's like we're like I feel like we have to like keep reiterating that we're not against trans people. You know what I mean? I'm just against like, you know, like I'm against the medicalization of people and especially children and you know what I mean? And things being
evaluation
rushed.
Right. Yeah. Like it being rushed, like there's a fast track for it to take place.
Yeah.
And just like a disregard for the children's safety. That's the issue I have with it. Not that anybody wants to do that. I think it's absurd that a child can decide that that's their decision. Okay, I'm 13 now. I want to be a boy. You know, if they're a girl.
But how do they know what a boy even is? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is that? Does anyone even asking them what do you mean a boy? Like, what does that mean to you?
You're not even like
the ideal is different of what that is.
Like, what does it mean to be a boy? Like, what is it? Just your clothes? Is it everything? Like, these questions aren't being. Is it just that you like that you don't like dresses? I mean, like, because not every female likes dresses. Like, that's not a thing. And some males, like, I had an ex that used to like wear my skirts like all the time. You know, so like. You know, and I've helped adults put on freaking drag shows, drag queen and drag king. Cause I had like, you know, we actually did a whole drag king show where it was all females, like that were cross-dressed as males. And
in 2009 and 10, I did several burlesque drag shows. Did Baby It's Cold Outside as the
I have to see if I can find the pictures because I know that there's pictures from like when we did it and everything and like
I
you know
see those.
Yeah, there's some pictures, like that's what I mean. Like I was completely entrenched in the the LGBT community. Like
too.
that was, I mean, it was like freaking pride everything. Like it was, I was heavily into it, and now stepping out of it, I can see where that whole shift of that kind of like I still affiliate with that, the LGBT community, but like not as like prominent as it was then, so like I can see where, like, if you're completely in it like that, where you can like have those bumpers kind of like guiding you to kind of like, okay, this is like where the, like, you know what I mean, the path of this goes. I can see where that could happen really easily, because it's like, it's completely groupthink, it's like, it's like, oh yeah, we're all allies, and like you're part of something, and you feel like, you belong,
which is a really good thing, but also can put sometimes undue pressure in certain areas. And I feel like before we were kind of free from that, but I feel like social media has really shifted this, because I feel like, in part of the community when I was younger, it was all about acceptance. We accepted, we didn't like judge cis people. We didn't even have a term for it. We didn't we hung out with like everybody, and everybody was welcome. Everybody was a part. And we also distinguished between kink and being gay. They weren't the same thing. We were like new people from the kink community. You'd be like, hey, kink community, I know all about it, but it wasn't necessarily intertwined. And I feel like now it's like,
yeah, like it's
like a kink is
the gay community
identity, and I'm like, that's never really been like, a kink isn't an identity, is it? Like, because being gay isn't a kink. It's not a kink.
No.
So I feel like we fought for so long to be like, it wasn't a kink, and now it's like, it's a kink, because they're like bringing kinks into it now. And so I'm like, oh, it's really hard to sift through. And I can't imagine being like 14 on TikTok.
I know, and like hearing everything that they're hearing, and like, and TikTok's one thing I will say is that their algorithm is really well made. If you look at a certain kind of video, you are going to be fed that will be like your chosen, like, you know what I mean? Like, you will get that kind of content.
I can attest to this 100%. I look at the titties once, and that's it. Yeah, all titties, all day, every day. Open up TikTok, titties. That's how the algorithm works. Agro progressive told me not to go there, and I didn't listen.
He just told on himself.
Well,
yep.
I've done it a lot of times that I've pulled on myself. I'm notoriously boobies, exactly, salty.
Oh my gosh,
it's true. It is true. But like, yeah, and so if they get on that algorithm of the trans stuff, then I mean, it's gonna be like if they watch one makeup tutorial, couple makeup tutorials, like, oh cool, look what they did, then you're on that line of that trajectory of their algorithm. Like, their algorithm,
it's really specific.
It's really strong, it's really well written,
better than you.
Yeah, like you'll be like, holy shit.
No, I want musicians, and it's like, no, Steve, you want the titties. No, we know better.
And like, that's why, like, it's different for everybody. So like, somebody using it in a different way, if they didn't like kind of like go on those particular things, like if they didn't go on any like anything trans, then they're not going to get that in their feed. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to be fed that. So like, if a teenager clicks on something like that, then like, they're going to get that. That's what they're going to be fed.
Yeah, because
like,
and it's called a feed for a reason, because that's what it does. It just, you know what I mean, fills up your head and your space and your time with scrolling through that. You know what I mean? And you could get just looped into that echo chamber that we're talking. That we started the premise of the show. Just it's so easy to be in that loop and not question that. Well, I know this got to be true, and
this
if you
person
don't follow up and actually research for yourself, then you're in that loop. You automatically get swept up. It's like a tide or something. It's like the ocean. You know what I mean? You stand in the water long enough, the undertow will pull you out.
Yeah,
crazy.
It really it's really crazy how easy it is to get in that echo chamber, and then we get stuck in that same propaganda. And like like I was saying, it's like it's like the bumpers in the bowling alley, you know what I mean? So you always get a strike, and you don't ever go out, you don't veer off. That's it. You're gonna hit something. So
there's all these GoFundMe.
There's like 40,000 for females trying to get top surgery. 40,000 GoFundMes.
That's just females getting top surgery.
That's just the top surgery, like ones.
That's not bottoms.
And
that's all the options are now, right? Tops and bottoms.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if they, come up with there's some kind of new thing that I'm not hip to.
I mean, and then there's the doctors, even if they are having like a bot, as like if the person's having like a botched surgery or whatever too, if that's happening, then they don't get like, it's not like there's a guarantee for them to have future surgeries. You know what I mean? Like if something goes wrong or you have complications, if you don't have money to continue to see that doctor, that, you know what I mean? Like you can find yourself in tremendous trouble. And we don't have health care in this country for everybody. You know what I mean? So
gosh, we better not, because that will just help it right along.
I know. What would that do? What would that do to this? Like, no, they're already giving. It's already easier to get transgender care or gender affirming care than it is to actually get health care. Which is what Zainab was saying in the beginning. It's just, that's crazy that you can get care for one specific thing, but not for everything. Like, why is it not mental health care that we have? Because
on so many of these, if you look on the descriptions, a lot of the descriptions will say, help give money to affirm my gender euphoria. They don't say to treat my gender dysphoria. They say to create gender euphoria. Yeah. To me, that tells me something. It's like, and maybe it's just a way to be accepting, but it's also that they are expecting euphoria after having this done. Some will have that, but my fear is a lot won't. That they're in their minds, they're believing that this will give them euphoria, and that really, I feel sad.
That's a disingenuous term for what it is.
Yeah, because do we just feel like, just euphoric, just being, who we are? It's not, that's a state of mind that, you don't live in a euphoria. Like, you don't always,
it's this understanding that those of us,
it's like chasing a dragon or something, you know what I mean? Like, what they're chasing something that always will elude them. It will forever elude them. Because no matter how, even if you have the perfect surgeries and everything else, if you have underlying stuff that's happening to you, then, then if that's not getting treated, then it will forever elude you, like you'll forever be, it's like the new opioid, like you were saying, like it's like they're forever chasing that dragon, and are they ever going to catch it?
The word euphoria is what makes me sad. This idea that, like I said, with the nose jobs and the breast implants and stuff, I understand why people want to do that to build their confidence, and that's okay. But I also think that we should be building confidence in people to feel good about who they are inside as they are, without medical interventions and surgeries and stuff like that. I think we should still be at a point in society where we look at that and we go, but let's take some steps to see if you can feel good as you are, because all of that stuff comes with a weight. It comes with a risk, and it comes with long-term, and it's irreversible.
Yeah.
So when I hear euphoria, I think of something different than I think of when I say, help me treat my gender dysphoria so that I can feel normal. I can go about my everyday life. When I hear euphoria, that's what it feels like to me, like it's a drug or but I've heard people posting and talking about now within the younger community about how lucky cis people are, how privileged they are because we are born.
Yeah, I just heard that too.
We don't have what are you talking about? Nobody has gender euphoria. That's not a thing. There might be very few people, and maybe they're narcissists, that have euphoria because of their gender. But most people, that's not a thing. Why is that a thing that's being talked about? And I read the clinics, and on some of these clinic websites, like Duke Health and a few others, they talked about help bring your child to a space of gender euphoria. And I'm like,
that's weird. That's like that's like chase. That's like, it just reminds me of like the opioid like thing, like it's like, they need this so they can feel good. Like that's
like it's not to cure depression now, it's to create euphoria. That's where
and what happens when they don't get euphoria? What happens when when they go on the hormones and say that like, like that it works and there's no complications, you know what I mean? That would be best case scenario. And say they have the surgeries and stuff like that. And what happens if they don't get euphoria though? What if that's the goal, if euphoria is the goal, then I don't think that doing all of that is going to get you there. I think that we need to have a more holistic approach to it and look at, the body, the mind, everything, you know what I mean? Like, how is your diet? You know what I mean? Like, are you exercising? Are you, you know what I mean? Are you doing okay?
Spirituality, even, where are you with like your spirituality? And when I look at propaganda, we're talking about propaganda. I look at the evolution of words sometimes, right? How words kind of change. Lydia, are you coming inside? What do you need?
I need things real quick.
Go ahead. You can get what you need, honey. Say hi.
No.
Skylar does the same thing. She'll be like, no. She'll like show a hand, like, and that's it.
You gonna show a hand?
No.
Smack me in the face.
Yeah.
But with words, I kind of look at, how words transition through time, because that's how you can kind of really see propaganda evolve. And you can see sometimes it'll make a shift to where the words will become good, and we're making a shift into a place where it's positive, it's more accepting, it's more rounded. And then you can get to a point when you get past that accepting part and past that positive to where it starts going back negative again in propaganda, because you can start to even things out, and make sure that things are better, but then people will want to push it even further and start taking advantage when they see that something has momentum, or when they just want to keep their nonprofits going, or they want to keep fundraising, or they want to keep. So with this particular word, we saw it go from, transsexuals. There's definitely a difference in biology, but people have can maybe present different as far as genders go, and that's wide, and everyone's accepted, and everyone has gender fluidity, or has some level of gender fluidity. We're all gender fluid at heart. That's where it started out. It's a great place, right? And then now we've moved to, then it moved to gender dysphoria and talking about that and talking about those very few small, minority that needs help and needs representation because they're not treated well by society. And there's all this stigma and how there's always been gender fluidity, but now there's a way for them to like make themselves feel better if they have this mental issue where they're, extremely stressed over feeling like they don't meet this ideal. And now it's gone to almost a fashion in some ways. And now the language has shifted from you know, what gender are you? Seek out your gender, you know, figure out what gender you are. And they've created, you know, hundreds of labels for different genders instead of it being gender fluid in a spectrum that's constantly changing through your life, that's constantly changing as you give it a label. So now you're going through a list and you're trying to figure out the label and which box you fit into.
They got really creative with it too. They just got like
and then now it's gender euphoria. So it's not just you're looking for mental health, you're trying to help feel better, you're trying to be on a track to be normal and be able to live your life as a normal person. Now they're saying to kids, you can have euphoria. And that to me is really troubling.
Yeah, because you're promising something. You're promising something that is not necessarily deliverable. You know, you can't necessarily guarantee anybody euphoria. You know, like people deal with depression, they deal with just life in general, and to promise that level of feeling, you know, I mean, and try to deliver that or make any kind of like guarantee that that's the goal. I mean, that's a pretty big task, especially without dealing with people's health in other ways, like their you know, their spirituality, their mental health, how they're eating, what is their environment like, you know, like, you know, how's your home life, you know, without dealing with the holistic care of a person. You can't really just pick and choose and be like, yeah, we'll do this one path and this will bring you euphoria and then that's it. Because that's not
something like top surgery, because breast reductions have always been a thing, but they're a little bit different than top surgery, and mastectomies happen when we have cancer, you know. Yep. But for someone who's like 13, 14, 15 to be considering, even 16 to be considering that, not knowing if they're going to feel like they want to become a mother or a parent later on, not knowing what all of that means for their future. Because I'm not saying teenagers are stupid. I'm just saying that self-exploration takes a long time. It really does. And none of us knew, you know, the whole coming of age story is about how we don't know. And, you know, we look back at that time and we kind of relearn something about ourselves and our, you know, when we're midlife, right? And then we reflect again when we're older and we look back to our coming of age and we see how we've changed and grown and, you know, where we were then.
Yeah.
We're never the same person.
No, I'm definitely like I'm in my core, I'm the same person, but like, you know, like as I've ebbed and flowed through life, like this, you know, like different things in different circumstances, and you know, like in the core, I'm the same, but like, yeah, things have changed. My tastes have changed for things, and you know, like you evolve, and that's a healthy thing to do. You know what I mean? To have a sense of who you are and to be able to have that ebb and flow and to evolve, you know, like that's healthy for a person. And, you know, like I know that, you know, puberty is like, you know, it is not a fun time to go through, you know, like it is not comfortable. It is not like, I mean, gosh, I remember just being like, just feeling all kinds of like awkward and weird, like already, like just, you know, like just like, and then on top of it, like just going through everything else and just dealing with life and dealing with, you know, just the trauma of, you know, what I went through in my years. And like, wow, I can't imagine making a huge decision or even having that put on my plate. Yeah. Like the option of it even being put on my plate. Like it was hard enough to just like go through that without having like all this like outside influence and like decision making that you know to do. I mean, your brain's not developed and like I've heard it was like your late 20s, and then I've heard it was like into your 30s. Like if your brain's not developed all the way and your body's not developed, how are you making decisions like without, you know, like a lot more guidance? Like
some of them never even having any sexual experiences because they shouldn't yet. I'm not saying they should. Don't take that the wrong way.
Yeah, no, but it stunts them.
Girl, I'm like, no.
I know. Yep.
Without even having those romantic partnerships, sexual experiences, I'm not saying some don't know. I think some do at a very young age, but I don't think that there is no way in hell the numbers are what we're seeing. There's no way in hell.
Yeah, and the numbers that we're seeing with the autistic children and with borderline personality disorder, like the number, like the statistics of this, like the math isn't adding up to being, you know what I mean, like that something is wrong, like something.
Well, they needed a new name for it: rapid onset gender dysphoria.
Yeah, and see the ever evolving
onset of that. Why don't we look into that instead of saying, okay, now they need to be transit? Why don't we look into what caused the rapid?
What's happening?
Yeah, and
why are so many feeling this
for
way?
A while through this before.
There's no process though. Like there's no stepping back. There hasn't been any like process. Like it feels like we're just like we're jumping a whole bunch of steps in the middle. Yeah. Like we're just like, oh yeah, we don't need to like inspect any of that stuff. We're just gonna, go from here and be at the end result.
Because it's phobic if you do. It's genocide if you do. And I'm like, you guys.
That's not true. Yeah, that's not true.
Because what's happening is the opposite. The opposite is that there's these social pressures. There's a lot of media. There's a lot of propaganda around this. There is a thing where it's kind of cool, especially for the young people. And then there's also a medical industry that's pushing kids toward this. So when you have that, you have to take that into consideration. And it's not genocide if these are kids who maybe aren't authentically feeling that way.
Yeah, it's healthy to ask the question
to see, are they authentically feeling this way? Has enough evaluation, or we're actually going to hurt people, and we're going to hurt people under the umbrella of some activists, and some people are saying this because they so securely want to not be challenged for the decisions they made. And I understand that, but that's also no reason to not say, okay, something may be different than the way it was when I was growing up. Here's the realities. Maybe I should stop advocating for this. Maybe it isn't genocide, to actually just ask the questions. I can also be against the laws in Florida. I could be against the laws that are like oppressive. But at the same time, forcing parents to transition children, like we were talking about in Washington, Oregon, is nuts. And in Canada, kids were being taken away from parents who didn't want to. One guy had his 8-year-old child taken away, and she ended up detransitioning and going back to her dad because her mom was pushing her to transition.
Yeah, I saw a post on Twitter the other day about how this mom wrote and was saying how, oh yeah, I had to pay my kid to do part of I think it was like getting their hormones like injected underneath their skin or something. It was something along the lines of that. But they were like, oh, my kid didn't want to do it. I had to pay them to do it. It's like, that's not consent then. That's not what that's your court. Yeah. You're not, that's not giving them the choice. Like, that's not freedom of choice. And then at the same post, it said that the mom was like, yeah, they cried the whole way home because they were just letting out all that stress. And I'm thinking like, I don't know. It sounds to me like, I don't know the child and I don't know the mom. And so it's really like, it's hard to say exactly, but to me, that just doesn't sound right. If you're having to pay your child, like, paying them, like, I was like, what? How is that even a choice? Like, how is that an option?
And then people there know that that's happening and not step in and say, hey, maybe we just shouldn't start this yet.
Yeah, Exactly. Like this is obviously like, okay, this is a pump the brakes moment. This is a let's stop and reevaluate. Let's see, you know what I mean? Let's see how things go. Like let's see how are you feeling? You know, like it just feels like it's like you're on a track and it's a fast track, you know, and there's no stopping, there's no pumping the brakes, and there's no U-turn. Like you're just
transitions can be hard too, because once you start asking everyone to say the different name, the different pronouns, everything's changed at school. And some people are doing this overnight. They're going out, they're having a celebration, they're having a party, they're buying their kids all these new clothes, they're immediately changing their name, they're calling the teachers, they're having this all done. And
so that kid is getting all that attention.
That kid's going to school as a new person. No counseling, no nothing in between. And affirmation therapists are saying, yes, absolutely, this is what needs to happen. But then after you've asked everyone, after you've came out, after you've presented yourself in this way, with no gradual way into it, especially for girls, I'm just going to be honest, especially for girls, it's very hard. And especially with girls that are autistic, it's very hard for us to then change course. Or we feel really bad that we've put everyone out and we've asked everyone to do this. So there's this massive pressure not to deviate once you do this.
Yeah, even if you have self-doubt or whatever, and people are like, oh, and then I've heard from detransitioners that have said, well, I did doubt things, and I expressed that I doubted it, and they just said, oh, that just means that that's just affirming you even more. And it's like, that's not helpful to people, because if they are feeling doubt, then they need to be able to express that. Then that needs to be part, like, if it's really about a treatment and about helping them, then it won't matter if they decide that that it's not right for them, or like they made a mistake. Then that needs to be supported in the same way that it is for them to do it.
Yeah,
you know,
that's heinous what the mom was saying about paying the child to take their medicine so that they could do this transition. Like that's not what kind of incentivizing thing that you should be doing. You should be making sure and affirming, and like, you know what I mean? Like
affirming that they're actually okay.
I'm 100% behind doing a supportive thing for your child. Like, you know, but at that point you gotta pay them with actual money or whatever, promises and things, and like that just seems greasy as hell. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's bad.
Yeah, that's pushing something. That's pushing an agenda, and I care about people. I want everybody to be able to get, health care that wants to be able to go see a doctor. I want everybody to be able to go see a doctor. I want that for everybody, but I don't want it if it's going to come with an agenda attached.
Yeah. It's like,
and going all the way back to propaganda, there's a lot of propaganda from the right wing and from the very fringe left on this topic. And then there's people that are just like, yes, we need to be able to support the LGBTQ community. Yes, we need to support the trans community. But we also need to hold the medical industry accountable. And we need to look at all these studies coming out where the affirmative care was done before, the model was done before, and see, is it something that works? We need to listen to parents. We need to listen to the kids going through the process. We need to respect that. We need to, take our time. And, if we're going to look at legislation, maybe it shouldn't be black or white. Maybe it shouldn't be either you're genociding the trans kids or, you're completely shutting anything down for any kind of equality and for any kind of treatment. Those two extremes aren't working right now.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I think that we don't work the common sense of it. You know what I mean? It's just not there. There's just like people are like, I'm either on this fast track of this propaganda, or I'm on this fast track of this propaganda, and that's it. Like, there's no middle ground. There's no like conversation of like, You know, like there's no nuance to this conversation. It's like, you know, they're either completely against it or they're, you know, it's like, no, we need to have a gauge here. We need to have a buffer and be able to say, okay, no, I don't agree with this, but I agree with this part. And like see where we can, you know, where we could find a middle ground and where it is about like the patient care, like and them getting the actual care that they need. And that needs to be the focus. But what we're focused on is profits. Huh?
Focused on the person, not the propaganda, not an agenda. The agenda should be the person.
Yeah. It should be that the person is happy and healthy. I mean, and that's just what we need to focus on throughout for everything in this country right now, right? We need to be, all of us need to be in a happier, healthier place. And how do we do that? You know, we need to break down the propaganda and point it out and be like, hey, no, like, let's look at this from a different perspective. Let's talk to people we don't agree with. Even if we don't agree 100% on things, like let's find where we do agree and let's find a common ground and let's find where we're not doing either end of this radical, you know, like either side of it.
We don't have to work with Nazis, but like literal Nazis, we don't have to work with them.
No,
we don't have to work with the KKK. Like Chris Hedges was trying to suggest. We don't have to work with pedos. I mean, you know, we can say Scott Ritter's not welcome. You know,
right. Yeah, like that's perfectly fine to socially, you know, say, yeah, no, that's not acceptable. Like that is perfectly fine for us to say that kind of person, if you know what I mean, if you like, I wouldn't freaking invite Jeffrey Epstein if he's alive, or if he isn't alive, I don't know, but you know, like I wouldn't invite him on an issue like that. Like,
I don't know, if I was making a musical, then I might work with Nazis. I'm just saying.
I love you very much.
Nazis are traditionally really good in musicals. I mean,
oh my God.
I'm sorry.
I mean, and how do we ever change anybody's mind if we don't talk to them, right? Like how do people change their mind? And
with your Vulcan mind meld, of course. Logical.
You know, if we don't bring different perspective, then how are we going to change anyone's mind?
Both at the same time.
Or figure out where we've got in common, because I bet that there's a lot more. You know, I don't think that we should voter shame, and I hear a lot of voter shaming all the time.
Yeah, I don't voter shame. I don't believe in voting, but I don't voter shame. I think it's, you know, like I'm like whatever. I mean, like
I don't care if you voted for Biden or Trump or whoever. Let's have a conversation. I do care. I mean, if you're a member of the KKK, like I said, or if you're like some like radical, like crazy person who thinks the DPRK is awesome and you want to bring Stalinism, you know, Stalinist authoritarianism to the US. Like those two, like crazy, like authoritarian, it's like two different versions of fascism.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, everybody has their parameters, you know.
Yeah, and we just have to kind of see where we all have to gauge where we're at.
Like here, that's like 5% and 5%. Everyone else is like here, and some of them like AOC, some of them like people I can't stand, like Lauren Boebert, or some, and most of them aren't seeing all the time what you're seeing. People see different things.
Oh,
like
constantly.
If people just went and read Jordan Peterson's self-help books without all the sexism stuff in them, just the self-help books, there's some of them that are really good.
Oh,
so
hell yeah.
if that's somebody's worldview is just like that stuff that actually is decent, like self-help stuff, like good like good stuff. Yeah. And they didn't know that he was a complete maniacal sexist. They might think he's a good guy.
You bloody well know it.
You wouldn't even know if you don't talk to that. You bloody well know it. No, you wouldn't know.
You bloody well know I'm a misogynist.
And you talk to the person who says they like Jordan Peterson. So if you cancel them immediately without even ask why. Why do you?
Yeah, I mean some of the
yeah, like do you like these other things?
Are absolutely 100% spot on, insightful, and just amazing, right? And then you read like, I don't know, another 2 sentences, and he's talking about, man being afraid of some metaphysical dragon and just fucking batshit crazy shit. You know what I mean? You're like, what? And then, so it's great. It's entertaining as hell. I love that guy's writing. It's fantastic.
Because he's just, some of it's just off the wall crazy.
Some of it is so precise with like insight and just like guidance and excellent wisdom. And then like another paragraph, you're like, whoa, that went off the rails. What the fuck? Where are we now? And I like that in a writer,
Maybe Jira Brown says, or LaRouche libertarians.
Exactly. The same kind of rhetoric, the same kind of crazy.
Have anything to do. And yeah. But I think that, what people see on social media in their like very catered echo chambers, is that people might share something and they don't know any other background to it. They might be like, I like Lauren Boebert because she's pro Second Amendment, and you're
right.
like, they don't know anything else about her, but she's pro Second Amendment. So
so she's swell.
Or someone says, I like AOC. She's a strong progressive. But they literally know nothing about her. So you're going to cancel them because they said they liked AOC. Like, we have to be able to get beyond that. And
what level of propaganda are they influenced with that person?
Right. If they're at that level where they are still like, well, this is still a good person, it's still a positive, you're still like, I feel good about this candidate or this person. I think they're going to do the right thing. If people are that invested in people, I'm not going to fault those people for falling for the same bullshit that everybody else falls for. You know what I mean? It's the part of the machine. It's part of the mechanism. It has to function that way. You have to support people that you think are going to do the right thing. And that's the way the fucking machine is built. And it needs that. It needs your energy to support those people. So not supporting them or ridiculing them when they don't support those same people with you is just futile. You know what I mean? Like, everybody deserves, like, yeah, man, right on. Good luck. Good luck in the election is my thing. I'm like, I think voting is ridiculous on its face, but at the same time, I'm not going to slam anybody for thinking that, you know what I mean? They know better than you know what I mean? Whatever.
I don't have to comment. I don't have to comment on everything.
Yeah.
I don't have to publicly share my opinion on every tweet that I see on Twitter. If it's something about like something I don't like, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes I can just skip over it.
There's trigger things.
You can do that.
When people pretend to be revolutionary and they're completely bought up in the whole entire system that still exists, and they're talking about all this change and everything, but they're activists and they're doing the thing, and they're really all about being revolutionary, and just and ultimately they're just bullshit, and they're just part of the same exact machine that's everything true. Else is. I see that more than anything, and that sometimes can trigger me to responding on Twitter or something. Probably not.
What triggers me, Steve? It's something similar, but kind of the opposite. That does trigger me too. I'm aboard with you on that one. But another thing that triggers me is when it's like bloody revolution or nothing, and it's like so nihilistic that it just makes me so depressed. I want to climb under a hole because I'm poor. I'm between jobs. I don't have health care. I'm disabled. Like, I've got all this shit going on, and I don't want that for my daughter. I want a better life. I want hope, but I also don't necessarily want a bloody revolution. Like, I'm not out here.
I feel you 100%.
So I feel like it's cosplaying either way you cut it. I mean, they're both cosplaying. And what I just thought about a second ago is what I've been missing because of so much work in the political sphere is just like making friends that we just talk about movies.
Right.
Music.
You talk about movies, or you talk
out, and it's not privileged to do that. It doesn't mean you're privileged because you can go outside and go to the park and have a barbecue. It doesn't mean it does a little bit, and I get that, but I used to feel like, I can't do anything. I have to like constantly be working. I have to be on top of the revolution, because if not, then I'm privileged, or I'm not privileged, and it's like, no. you can make friends, you can love your family, you can spend time with your family, you can enjoy things in life, you can bring joy, you can have spirituality. I've gotten back to doing my tarot card reading. I love to tarot card read.
Oh,
Cool.
Yeah, I'm a little witchy. But anyway, I'm a very spiritual person. And all right,
you have to do a reading for me. You have to do one for me.
That's cool.
and
think
it's like
everybody
a
should do that.
self-reflection. I don't like predict anything or anything like that. I like help people walk through like I'm not doing it for money or anything. I just do it for myself, and sometimes and it's creepy accurate. Sometimes people don't like me doing them because they're accurate. they're focused on self-healing and reflection. So I don't really do like, you're gonna die in 10 years. But anyway,
I need to know the date of my death immediately. I'll give you $45 in this gold ring.
He doesn't have either for you.
I don't have either thing. No, but seriously, I totally get what you were saying about, like, you want the existing systems to function so that your child can exist in a good, happy place and have some kind of illusion of reality and safety and thriving, hopefully a thriving life, right?
We don't want them to have to go through more trauma.
I don't want them to have to go through more trauma, but I am also a cynical motherfucker who realizes that left to its own design, it's inevitable that the system crumbles. And why the fuck not? Let's get it over with. I'm done. I'm done with trying to pretend that it matters what AOC said about Bernie Sanders's cousin and, whatever the hell they're talking about. It's just this minutia of drama that keeps everybody involved, and how each election cycle is more important than the last one.
Oh my God.
Your entire fucking
the
life.
Same thing.
That's too much for me. I'm just like, no, your system is completely broken. Some of the people that I know have everything that they need and 10 more TVs than they need in their house because they got it like that. And God bless them. That's cool. They worked hard for their shit. I'm not saying they shouldn't have their shit. I'm saying it should be more balanced for everyone to have a certain level of stuff and opportunity.
Steve, generational poverty is a real thing, and generational wealth is a real thing, and small things can help. Like, if parents can help make a down payment on a home, that completely changes someone's life, or if they can co-sign, or if they pay for someone's college.
Certainly, there's so many ways that it could
of your life, like
so many ways that mutual aid could augment what is already in place and already happening. You know what I mean? Like, just
but we have
networks of those.
Because the people that's already got mines don't really want to do the mutual aid as much,
right?
And so we end up doing like we do in Appalachia, and we say we're passing around the same $20 bill.
Mm-hmm.
Till we wear the corners off. And that helps, but it doesn't actually pull us up out of the hole. It keeps you circling around the hole is what it does. It keeps you in it, but you ain't quite.
We need community. We need more community. We need to, I wish that we could just basically break off from this system and just have our own country of people that
lose my train of thought. What I was saying about the whole thing was that there is that class separation, and that's built into the system. You know what I'm saying? The same exact system that we're talking about that is corrupt from the core. It is corrupt in that way so that it's not equal, and it never has been equal.
Yep.
And it never will be equal until it crumbles and we make something better. So yes, I don't want the children to have to suffer through that. But God damn it, when the fuck does it happen? When do people just say enough is enough? There's, to just watch all this wealth, just the people just without a care doing whatever they want. And we're scraping by each month. Like, God, I hope, I hope we have enough to be able to cover the few things that we have to pay monthly. You know what I mean? Like, I hope we can do it this month, and that's how we live. And other people are just like, whatever. You know, it's whatever. It's not. It's like it's not a when it's not a concern. It's not a concern.
Right.
So maybe, you know, that's the thing that needs to change is like the people that have could just be like, I'm kind of concerned that other people don't fucking have. And maybe not blame those same people that are living in the fucking street for living in the street. You know what I mean? It's really a simple thing that could be fixed. There's plenty of resources. There's plenty of buildings. There's plenty of space for people to not have to live on the street. You know, there's plenty of motivation within those groups of people. Most of them work already and live in their cars. You know what I mean? It's like,
housing is no longer a thing. Government housing. I mean, I tried to find it for my daughter and I the last couple months, and everywhere that I've looked is on like waiting list for weeks, if not months, or if not years. I mean, months and years really is what every waiting list I found. And I'm like, well, damn. And I posted a tweet today talking about single moms, and they make up 20% of the population of families, and 50% of them live below the poverty line, and they've completely cut the resources. And then this particular research was done, I think, by a more right-leaning organization, and they're like, marriage, that's the solution, as if most of us wouldn't want to be married if we could be, or have a partner, or like, you know, like we're just out here choosing to be single mothers with kids. You know what I mean? Some of us are, but a lot of us, honestly, many of us would like to stay home with our children when they're young. That's just a fact. Many women do. Many women would kind of like dream about staying at home with their kids. Second, marriage. Yeah, a lot of single moms would love to be married, but maybe they've gotten out of an abusive relationship, or no one wants to date a single mom anymore. So how the fuck do you make fetch happen if fetch isn't happening?
Yeah,
that's not
and some go
out and get me a husband. I think I'll go to Macy's.
Yeah, I think it's true. As like it's just another way for us to be divided. Like they teach us division, they teach us teamwork and fascism. They teach us these ideals and these modes. Like that's what you're given on this planet. We live in a mining operation, and the ore is our life force, and that's what they extract from us in the end.
They do, and it's like, I think what we need though is we need more actual community. Like I wish that we could just get a bunch of us and just, you know, like
bring back the tribe with the matriarch,
take over a state or something, you know, and just be like, no, we're done. We're done.
Peterson would have my head for saying so, but I think that's the way that it's supposed to work.
We're gonna build a commune. I always said I wanted a mommune. I used to watch what was the name of that show? It was like about sister wives. Jealous of them, because I would be like, God damn it, like I don't want to live like that, you know, in that kind of religious way. But at the same time, like I was jealous of the fact that they were like helping each other take care of each other's kids, and they had like this built-in community. And I was like, that be to have support as a mom.
Has its perks, certainly.
I mean, I think
not all cults are like terrible, you know. Some of them have some like really sweet perks, especially if you're a cult leader. You know, you're always winning.
Oh my gosh!
I'm not suggesting we should start a cult. Yes, I am. I'm just kidding.
I think that like having like a community, like communal living, would be like the absolute, you know, like ideal. Like, you know, just to be able to. Everybody has their strengths. There's certain people that are better with gardening. There's certain people that are better with like, you know, like. I mean, obviously, you have to be able to like vet the community, and if you know the people in your community, then you're gonna know if somebody's a creep, and you're not gonna keep them in your community. Like you're not gonna let that guy be near the kids, you know, like the women if they're out of control with women, you know, like.
So you're not gonna just throw people away either. You're gonna
you as a community, you're gonna have to like come together and approach that person and have a conversation that might not be comfortable. you know, and you know, if someone obviously cannot.
If Survivor has taught us anything, the monster will get him.
The monster.
I was thinking of M. Night Shyamalan's The Village.
I know, right? Like we're like, whatever. Now you gotta go out there to Babylon,
You
motherfucker. You just can't stay here.
You start their own tribe. It's more powerful than ours.
But you know, I think something, you know, something along the lines of just having, you know, community and I mean, man, like the people in general of just like this entire country, just like, you know, we talk about they always talk about like the Great Reset. Like we need a great like like just awakening of our minds. Like I feel like there's just people are stuck on propaganda and they need there needs to be something that's going to snap them out of it. I don't know.
When I stepped away from organizing, I realized that I wasn't doing anything. I mean, I spent the last 10 years and helped with, you know, some things that made a difference, but a lot
that's
of
got to be hard.
The political work didn't do a damn thing. I mean, you know, all that work I did with Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats and the People's Party and then like organizing here, organizing there, because a lot of it was political. And I'm not, a little secret for you, I don't even like politics that much. I don't like it. I never have. Like I said, I've never been a Democrat. I've never been a Republican. I just was desperate and tired. So I never really fit in because, you know, there's so much narcissism in politics and stuff. And there's so much like me and there's so much ego. And I couldn't even make myself be that person. So I got walked over a lot because I couldn't, like, I didn't have that gusto or I didn't come from that privilege. And like, it just seeped through my pores, you know, that I was a poor Appalachian. And so it's like, it's like the predators are ready to pounce, you know?
Right.
But,
Yeah.
but if these people are just like us, they put their pants on the same way, you know, their dresses on, whatever the hell they're wearing. They all have to eat. They have to sleep. They're not heroes. They're not going to save us from everything. And until we adjust the system, we are going to have to live in the system. They had to, Ellis. They have.
Oh, look at that. You guys are such cute babies. Oh, you guys are so cute. Oh. They're both giving kisses.
Yep. It's funny.
Well, this was a great conversation. I can't believe we've gone 3 hours
3
already.
friggin' hours.
Yeah, I better let Lydia get in the bed soon. I'm taking up the bedroom here.
Yeah. Well, where can everybody find you? Is there any like links or anything that we should be putting in the show down in the show notes so everyone can find you?
Like I said, I'm kind of transitioning, so I don't even know what I'm going to do. I was going to start a journalism blog and, you know, a YouTube channel, and I might still do one, but I think it's going to be more fluid and it's not going to be like that because I just found for my mental health, I can't do it anymore. Like, and it's just too much to stay on top of all the darkness and hate every single day. It's important to be informed, but sometimes in life you have to keep yourself informed to a certain extent, but you also have to learn when it's time to unplug some and it's time to step away from something.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
it was like a dark cloud was hanging over me literally all the time. And I was in a deep, deep depression. The propaganda had gotten to me. And now I feel like I've stepped out of a cult and I need time to reorient myself. But you can find me at Zainab Day on Twitter. So at ZEYNABDAY, my name, or Bullhorn Bulletin on Substack. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing on there, but I will be doing some stories and stuff like that and still writing about things. I am working on a book right now.
Ooh.
Bernie, Boom, and Bust, about the movement, about propaganda, about how things change, and about how kind of this whole revolution and grassroots thing rose up, but then what happened to it and where we are now?
Yeah, it kind of like fizzled out. Like it definitely it fractured. Definitely. Oh, I'm excited though. I'm really excited. And you always let me know if you want to. You're like, I need to come on and we need to talk about that. You let me know. Well, you can come back. And that's what's great. That's what's great about having this channel is that there are no rules. We do, you know what I mean? We cover like wherever it goes, and that's it. So
like a Maury Povich show. We do, we won't.
Show without DNA test.
Oh my gosh, I know, right? Oh my
Turns
gosh.
out, Zainab, the child is yours.
You already went through that.
You are the father. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for coming and hanging out with us tonight. This was so much fun.
I really enjoyed the conversation. It was a tough conversation with some of the things we were talking about, but it's also, I think, healing to be able to just open up and have honest, open conversations about some of these things. And I think that it can be shown that you can talk about this content without being filled with hate, and that it's not necessarily hateful to ask questions and to have nuance and to talk through things. That's actually can be a way of loving each other and
mutual aid. It's a mutual aid, and it's like we're kind of like, because we're talking about things that are difficult in a nuanced way, we're kind of giving an olive branch for people to go, okay, maybe I do or don't, you know what I mean? They may or may not agree with us, but it gives them an olive branch where if they do feel that way, it's like, okay, I can, you know what I mean? I have a place where you know what I mean? I have, there's someone else that gets that's saying like where I kind of, where I kind of like am nestled in there. Like that's kind of like where I'm at with it.
And if they don't like olives, there's at least cute dogs.
Yeah, and message me if you have additional information that hasn't been shared here, at Zainab Day, Twitter. I would love to learn. I'm open to hearing where I could be wrong. We should be normalizing it being okay to be wrong. So if I got something, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, like we should be able to, be humble enough to say,
right, but I've never been wrong. I mean,
Steve's never been wrong.
No, of course not.
Right, just that one time. I don't want to talk.
Lucky's like, I got the all written down.
That's right. That one time in 1977. In 6th grade, when they asked me to spell requisite, I got that wrong.
That one time. That was it.
That's it.
You were in 6th grade in 77?
I don't remember really. It's all a blur.
What?
No, how old are you in 6th grade? Like 11 or 12?
12.
All right, so it was like 1981.
That's a little bit different.
That one time in 1981. See, they get all jumbled up. I don't know. It feels like the summer of 1987 was like, a few summers ago to me. So I have no idea how time works exactly. But
I'm the opposite. I feel like 1997, when I graduated high school, was like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it was 1983.
Yeah. I have some. We'll have to do like a stream where we like show our old pictures from like high school.
I think I was right. I think it was 78, 79. I think it was 79. Now that I think about it, because I was born in 68, so that might say, nah, I'm not good at the math sciences.
Oh my gosh! All right.
The math is hard, man.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yes, thanks so much.
Everybody, please check out luckyburritoart.com where I have all my merch that I make by hand. And if you use coupon code MOM20 right now, you get 20% off.
I just want to clear one thing up because someone mentioned this last week. A team of elves or dwarves does not come in and make all the earrings for Lucky. That's not true.
No.
I just want to dispel that immediately.
Yes.
I think YepX said that, so never believe anything YepX says.
Oh my gosh. All right, you guys. Have a great night.
Peace out, everybody.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
Oh, VS Adams, like no
Absolutely.
outgoing song. Should I play a song real quick?
Oh, yeah, sure. If you want to do a song.
I'll do a song real quick. Let's see.
Well, do you want to sit here?
No, I don't want to move. I just want to play a song. Is there a pick over there? You see a pick under there in ours?
Do you want yellow or blue?
Yellow is fine. Yellow and blue. I'm a Ukrainian guitar picks over here. What's going on? All right, I'm just gonna play a quick little. Well, I know you right are gonna miss me when I'm gone. Well, I know you right are gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss your baby from rolling in your arms. I laid down last night, Lord, I could not take my rest. I laid down last night, Lord, I could not take my rest. My mind was wandering like the wild geese in the west. But I know you right are gonna miss me when I'm gone. But I know you right are gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss your sweet baby from rolling in your arms. Well, the sun's gonna shine in my back door someday. Well, the sun's gonna shine in my back door someday. A March wind's gonna blow all my troubles away. Well, I wish I was a headlight on a northbound train. I wish I was a headlight on a northbound train. Well, I'd shine my light through that cool Colorado rain. Well, I know you right are gonna miss me when I'm gone. Well, I know you right are gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss your sweet baby from rolling in your arms. Thanks, everybody.
There we go. There, I fixed it. So it says use MOM20 for 20% off checkout.
Boom. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Everybody have a great night.
Night.